You know that feeling when life suddenly becomes quiet, when the noise of the day settles, and for a brief moment, you're left with nothing but yourself. And in that space, a question softly rises. What am I really doing here? It doesn't usually happen in grand moments. It sneaks in while you're driving alone, the road humming beneath your wheels. It appears when you're standing at the sink, rinsing dishes in warm water. It visits when you're lying in bed before sleep finally takes you. In those ordinary pauses, something in you wonders, why am I here? If you're listening to these words right now, chances are you felt that very question, that quiet, wordless wondering about your place in this vast unfolding. It's not the sharpness of worry, nor the heaviness of anxiety. It's something deeper, gentler, almost like a childlike curiosity about the incredible mystery of being alive at all. And here's something beautiful. Long ago, in ancient China, some wise seekers noticed something simple yet profound about this question. They saw that the part of you which wonders, the quiet and aware part that leans into the mystery, is actually completely at peace. Right now, in this very moment, something in you is listening. Something is aware of the sound of these words. Something is quietly watching your thoughts drift by. That something has always been here. It has never been broken. It has never been lost. It has never truly been confused. And it has never once needed fixing. For the next little while, we're going to explore what might be the gentlest discovery you can ever make. Not by straining your mind, not by trying to think your way into clarity, but by softly noticing what is already whole, what is already okay, right here, right now. You've been searching for peace through your plans, your relationships, your goals, your self-improvement. But here's the quiet truth. The part of you that is searching has always been peaceful. The very awareness that looks for peace is itself made of peace. Let me show you what I mean. Here's something almost everyone experiences. You're going about your day when suddenly the thought arrives. Who am I really? Not your name, not your job, not your role in the world. But beneath all of that, who am I, truly? Most of us begin searching for an answer in familiar places. We look into our memories. We examine our personalities. We weigh our hopes, our dreams, our failures, our successes. We even try to dig into our emotions, our beliefs, our thoughts, hoping the truth will be hiding in one of them. But then something strange happens. The more you look, the less solid the answer becomes. The more you try to grasp it, the more slippery it feels. You might sit quietly, peering inward, trying to locate the one who is asking. You keep looking, deeper and deeper, and then the most unexpected thing occurs. You can't seem to find anyone there. At first, this can feel unsettling. Where is the person you thought you were? Where is that solid, definable me? The absence might even scare you. But if you stay with it, something beautiful dawns. What you find instead of a self is a vast, open, spacious awareness. That wide quiet, that infinite presence. That is more you than anything you could ever pin down. That is more real than any label, more constant than any story. This is what Zen teachers and mystics have been pointing to for centuries. When you really look for yourself, you don't find a thing, you find the space in which all things appear. So, let's try something together. Right now, wherever you are, pause for a moment. If it feels comfortable, gently close your eyes, or simply soften your gaze, letting the world blur a little. Now, ask yourself quietly, who is listening to these words? Do not rush to answer. Do not think too hard. Just notice. There is listening happening. There is awareness present. Can you find the listener, or do you simply find the silent, open space in which sound, thought, and life itself are unfolding? That space, that stillness, that's you. not your body. That's only what you can touch, see, and feel. A form that changes, grows, ages, and eventually fades. Not your thoughts either. Those are like echoes moving through your mind, voices that rise and fall, but never stay. Not even your emotions, as powerful as they may feel, for they too arrive, surge like waves, and then pass. The real you, the one we are pointing to, is subtler. The actual you is the one who is aware of all these things, the one who notices the body, who observes the thoughts, who feels the emotions but is not limited by them. So let me ask, can you find that one? Can you actually grasp hold of this you? Or do you discover instead a kind of vast, open, aware presence, something that cannot be caught, yet is undeniably here? Perhaps you've experienced this already. Maybe you've spent time searching for yourself, convinced you would uncover some solid core identity, some permanent me at the center of everything. And yet, instead of finding a fixed essence, you stumbled into something unexpected, an incredible spaciousness. It's like entering a house, searching for its owner, and discovering the rooms are empty. But strangely, the emptiness itself feels more alive, more mysterious, more complete than any person you expected to find there. And here's the key: this isn't just a philosophical idea. It's not an abstract theory. It's something you can experience directly, right now, in this very moment. That awareness which is reading these words, try to catch it, try to hold it in your hands, try to define it with absolute certainty. You'll notice you can't. It slips through every attempt to pin it down. It's like trying to chase your own shadow, or as the Zen masters say, like trying to bite your own teeth. But here's the beautiful part. That which cannot be grasped, that clear, ungrasped awareness, is more truly you than anything you've ever taken yourself to be. It has been the silent witness through every single change in your life. When you were 5 years old, it was there, quietly noticing. When you were a teenager, full of confusion or wonder, it was there too, untouched by the storms of youth. And when you are 90, frail in body but rich in years, it will still be there, unchanged, unmoved, utterly at peace. Most spiritual seeking begins with a kind of mistaken identity. We think we are the character in the story, the personality with problems, the one who needs to grow, to improve, to become enlightened. We chase peace as if it was something outside of ourselves. But Zen points us towards something much simpler and far more intimate. You are not the character in the story. You are the awareness in which the story unfolds. Think of all the times you've worked on yourself. Perhaps you've tried to heal old wounds, to tame your anger, to ease your fear, to make peace with your past. And that work has its value. It shapes the story. It softens the journey. But have you ever stopped to notice the one who is aware of all that work? Who is it that sees anger when it arises? Who feels fear, yet also knows it is fear? Who observes grief as it moves through the heart? That observer, that open presence, is never wounded by what it sees. It is like the sky watching the clouds pass by. Clouds may gather, thunder may roll, storms may rage across the horizon, but the sky itself is never stained, never broken, never burdened. It simply allows, simply holds, simply is. This is why many people feel confused when they begin searching for themselves. They expect to find someone, a solid self. Instead, again and again, they meet no one. But this no one is not a cold emptiness. It is not a blank void. It is emptiness, the way space is empty, open, vibrant, alive with possibility. It is aware. It is present. It is awake. The ancient Zen teachers used to say something that sounds like a riddle, but carries deep wisdom. You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement. What does this mean? It means that the essential you, the pure aware presence, is already complete. It doesn't need fixing, it doesn't need polishing, it doesn't need to be found, because it has never been lost. But the story you carry about yourself, the character you play in the unfolding drama of life, that story can always be refined, updated, softened, transformed. The presence is already whole. The character can always grow. Right now, pause for a moment and notice something simple yet extraordinary, how effortless it is to be aware. You're not straining to be conscious. You're not forcing yourself to be present. Awareness does not require effort because it is not something you do. It is what you are. It's like the sun in the sky. The sun does not struggle to shine. It doesn't need a reason to radiate light. It simply shines because shining is its nature. In the same way, awareness simply is. It illuminates every thought, every sensation, every experience, without needing to try. And here's something even more astonishing. This awareness, the very presence through which you are reading and hearing these words, it has never been born. Think about that carefully. When you were born, your body appeared in this world. Over time, your mind developed, learning language, ideas, habits. Your personality formed, shaped by family, culture, memory, and experience. But the awareness itself, that pure noticing, that was never created. It has always been here, like the open space in which the play of your life unfolds. And now comes a beautiful surprise. The awareness that you are, the silent witness behind your thoughts and feelings, is the very same awareness in every other being you encounter. When you look into another person's eyes, beyond the surface of personality, beyond the differences in story, culture, or age, what you are really meeting is your own awareness reflected back at you. Different bodies, different minds, different journeys, but one essential presence, open, aware, luminous. Have you ever noticed this with a small child, sitting quietly, gazing into their clear, unguarded eyes? Something awakens in you. You realize that the same awareness shining through their gaze is the same awareness shining through yours. Age may differ, experience may differ, knowledge may differ, but that essence, that pure presence, is identical. This is why spiritual teachers say that when you truly discover yourself, you discover everyone, and when you truly discover everyone, you discover no one in particular. You discover instead an open, boundless awareness that holds everything, that excludes nothing, that is inseparable from love itself. So when that question arises, who am I? Try shifting the way you approach it. Instead of searching for someone to find, notice that you are already the someone who is looking. Instead of chasing awareness as if it were an object, rest as the awareness that is doing the searching. Instead of trying desperately to find yourself, notice that you are already the finding, the openness through which all experience appears. The seeker and the sought are the same. The one you have been searching for has been doing the searching all along. And this brings us to a profound question. If awareness has always been here, then what was never actually born? Here's a simple but powerful experiment. Try right now to remember the moment when you first became aware, not the day you were born. That's a different kind of memory. I mean the moment when awareness itself began. Look back as far as you can. Perhaps your earliest memory is from when you were 3 years old, playing in the backyard, chasing light and shadow, laughing in the sun. But even then, notice something was already present. Something was already aware of the playing, already witnessing the moment. Now go further back, before that memory, and further still, before any memory you can recall. Search as deeply as you like. Can you find the exact moment when awareness switched on? You can't. It's impossible. And this impossibility is itself the doorway to realization. Because the awareness that you are has no beginning. It was never born. It simply is. This is one of the most beautiful discoveries you can make. That what you truly are, the awareness behind every experience, is timeless. It has no start, no origin point. It was here before every story, and it will be here after every story ends. Not your body that arrived with birth, grew and changed. Not your mind. It learned language, habits, worries, and beliefs over time. Not your personality, shaped by family, culture, heartbreaks, and small joy. Think about everything that has changed in you. When you were a child, your hands were smaller, your voice higher, your world nearer. Your thinking then was different, your fears different, your loves different. Even the cells that make up your body have been replaced many times over. Almost nothing physical about you now is the same as it was 10 years ago. Yet through every shift, something has remained. There is a quiet awareness that notices all of it. It watched you as a child, and it watches you now. The same attentive presence that looked out through wide, curious childhood eyes looks through your adult eyes in this very moment, unchanged, untouched by time. Notice this for a moment. Awareness itself does not age. Your body shows lines and hair may silver. Your mind gathers memories and knowledge. But the capacity to be aware, that basic clarity and openness, does not feel older or warier than it did when you were young. If you look honestly, awareness appears as fresh now as it ever was, timeless, immediate, alive. Imagine a clear mirror that reflects everything without being altered by the reflection. Joy, grief, boredom, inspiration, they all appear in it. Yet the mirror remains intact. That is the nature of awareness. Zen teachers point to this with a simple, startling question. Show me your original face before your parents were born. It sounds like a riddle, but it's actually an invitation, not to solve something with the mind, but to look directly at what you are before any story begins. Before names, roles, histories. What were you? Not who were you, but what were you? The surprising truth is, it's the easiest thing in the world to see. What you were before any experience is exactly what you are now beneath every experience. That open, present space in which everything appears. From the standpoint of pure awareness, birth and death are like dreams inside a larger dream. Forms arise and dissolve like waves on an ocean. The ocean itself remains. Your body appears in awareness. Your thoughts arise and fall within awareness. Your life story unfolds inside awareness. But awareness itself was never born. It is the field into which birth and death arise. You don't have to take this on faith. Try a small investigation right now. Notice that you are aware of your body. You can feel your hands, the weight of your seat, the rhythm of your breathing. Now notice that you are aware of thoughts, memories, plans, little commentaries running along the edges of experience. Notice sounds around you, the shifting temperature on your skin. Ask gently, is awareness inside my body, or is my body appearing inside awareness? Don't answer quickly with the mind. Let the question rest as a noticing. See whether you can sense which perspective feels truer. Does the body contain awareness, or does awareness contain the body? Here's another experiment that helps. Imagine a line of photographs. You as a toddler, you at school, you at 20, you a year ago, you today. Now lay across them one single thing, the awareness that is watching each photo. That same seeing holds them all. The more you attend, the clearer this continuity becomes. This recognition changes how you relate to life. When awareness is understood as the ground of experience, the dramas of the personality, the unfinished stories, the self-improvement projects, the habitual fears, can be seen as events happening within the field rather than as who you fundamentally are. That doesn't mean you stop caring about growth or healing. It simply frees you to act from a quieter clarity rather than from anxiety or lack. So, look again now. Is awareness limited by time? Can you find a moment when it began? Can you find a moment when it will end? The sense that it has no beginning and no ending is not an abstract idea. It's a direct perception you can touch in this very moment. Stay with that for a breath or two. Let the discovery settle softly. The body changes, the mind stories shift, but the clear, open presence that notices all of it remains steady, immediate, fresh, and whole. Where does awareness end, and where does everything else begin? Look closely. Can you find a boundary? Can you point to a line where awareness stops and the world begins? You can't, can you? Because when you look honestly, everything you experience, your body, your thoughts, the sights, the sounds, the world itself, seems to be floating inside an ocean of awareness. And here's the great discovery. You are not a drop in that ocean. You are the ocean itself. This is radically different from how we usually think of ourselves. We imagine we are small beings, trapped inside big bodies, moving through a vast, indifferent world. But what if it's the other way around? What if it is not that you live inside the world, but that the world lives inside you, inside the awareness that you are? From this perspective, asking, when was I born, is a bit like asking, when was space born? Space is not born into the universe. The universe arises in space. Likewise, awareness is not born into the world. The world appears within awareness. And just like space, awareness has no age, no history, no beginning, no end. It is simply here, silent, open, unchanging, always available. Of course, you might object, but I have a birth certificate. I have a birthday. Doesn't that prove I began? And yes, something was indeed born on that day. A body appeared. A nervous system began developing. A human story started unfolding. But the awareness in which that entire story unfolded, that was already here. Think of a movie screen. Countless films can play upon it. Dramas, comedies, love stories, birth scenes, death scenes, tragedies, and epics. Yet no matter what images appear, the screen itself is never harmed, never aged, never born, never killed. It remains untouched, silently present, allowing every story to appear. You are like that screen. The story of your life, your triumphs, your heartbreaks, your moments of joy and despair, all play out across the screen of awareness. But the awareness itself, the very capacity to experience, remains unchanged. It was never born, and it will never die. And this recognition changes everything. Because when you realize that your essential nature was never born, you also realize it can never die. What was never created cannot be destroyed. What has no beginning cannot have an end. This is not a belief to adopt or a philosophy to memorize. It is something you can see for yourself right now. That awareness, listening to these words, look directly at it. Try to find the moment it began. Try to locate its starting point. Try to assign it an age. Try to wound it or stain it or change it. You can't. It's untouchable. It's indestructible. It's utterly safe. Discovering this is like waking up to find that at the deepest level, you are made of something that has never been threatened and never could be. No matter what storms come and go in your life, this silent presence is like the vast sky, unchanged by the passing clouds. And when this realization begins to sink in, not just as an idea, but as a felt truth, something extraordinary happens. A deep peace begins to blossom. You begin to understand that what you most deeply are has never been in danger. Yes, your body will age. Yes, your mind may forget. Yes, your circumstances will shift. But this aware presence, the true you, remains untouched. It has always been here, quietly holding everything, before you noticed it, and after every story passes away. It has been here, all along, quiet, patient, still, like a vast open sky. This presence has always been here. It does not rush, it does not demand, it does not move with time. It waits, not in the way a clock waits for hours to pass, but outside of time altogether, beyond past, beyond future, beyond change. This silent awareness is what the Zen masters call your original face, the face you had before your parents were born, before any form took shape, before memory and story and name. This is what you were before your body arrived. This is what you are right now in the midst of your current life. And this is what you will still be when your present story has reached its final chapter. It is the unchanging backdrop, the groundless ground, the awareness that simply is. And once you begin to glimpse this directly, not as an idea, not as a belief, but as living truth, you begin to wonder something extraordinary. If I was never truly born, if awareness itself has no beginning and no end, then what is it that seems to suffer? Why you feel separate? Think about the way pain unfolds. Imagine you stub your toe. Instantly, there is a sharp sensation, pure, direct, immediate. For a brief moment it is just raw pain, nothing more. But then notice what happens next. The mind rushes in to weave a story. That really hurt. That's so careless. This always happens to me. Now my whole day is ruined. And suddenly, what was just a flash of physical sensation grows into something heavy and sticky. It lingers. It repeats itself. It multiplies into suffering. This is the key distinction. Pain is what happens in the moment. Real, undeniable. Suffering is the added layer of story we wrap around the pain. And here's the remarkable truth. Suffering always needs someone to suffer. Without a self-image, without a me who takes ownership of the pain, suffering cannot survive. Ask yourself, can there be suffering without a sufferer? Can there be a victim without someone playing the role of victim? Can there be a problem without someone to whom the problem belongs? No, it's impossible. This is the very insight Zen has been pointing toward for centuries. All suffering depends on the illusion of being a separate somebody who is being hurt. But what if that somebody is not as solid as it seems? What if the self you defend, protect, and identify with is itself just a story arising in awareness? A small experiment. Try this now. Bring to mind something that has been bothering you lately. Nothing enormous, just some everyday friction. Maybe it's stress at work. Maybe it's stress at work. Maybe it's stress at work. Maybe it's stress as misunderstanding in a relationship. Maybe it's worry about money or health. Now ask, who exactly is experiencing this problem? At first the answer comes automatically. I am. But pause here. Look closer. Where is this I that is suffering? Can you actually locate it? Or do you simply find more thoughts, more sensations, more mental images floating in awareness? Notice what happens. There are definitely thoughts about the problem. There are definitely feelings in the body. Tension, heaviness, unease. There may even be mental pictures of how life should look. But the supposed sufferer, the one to whom all of this is happening, where is it? When you really search, you find no one home. The one who suffers is like a phantom, like trying to grab smoke or catch a cloud in your hand. And this isn't just an idea to entertain. It's a living experiment you can do in real time. The next time you feel upset, angry, or disappointed, pause. Instead of diving headfirst into the story of why you're upset, Turn your attention toward the one who is upset. Look carefully. You'll notice there are thoughts that say, "I'm angry." You'll notice physical tension in the chest or jaw. You'll notice mental images replaying how things should have gone differently. But beyond these appearances, where is the... You'll find sensations, you'll find thoughts, you'll find stories, but the solid, enduring self they claim to belong to, that self cannot be found. It dissolves, like mist, under the morning sun. This is why traditional Zen masters often radiated such unshakable peace, even while walking through circumstances that would crush an ordinary mind. They were not superhuman beings immune to life's difficulties. They still felt hunger, they still felt pain, they still saw storms of loss and conflict pass through. What made the difference was not the absence of pain, but the absence of the illusion that there was a solid someone at the center who could be fundamentally harmed. Once this illusion is pierced, something remarkable happens. Pain can still appear, but it is only pain, a raw sensation moving through the body like a gust of wind. Difficult emotions can still ripple, but they are just passing weather in the sky of awareness. Challenges and disappointments still arise, yet they no longer grow into the heavy shadow of suffering. The story of me being hurt, me being wronged, me being incomplete, this extra layer simply loses its grip. It is the difference between watching a storm roll through the sky and believing that storm is happening to you personally. When it's just weather, you can observe with curiosity, even awe. Lightning flashes, thunder rumbles, rain falls, and then it passes. But when the mind insists, "This is my storm, my crisis, my disaster," it becomes unbearable. The sky doesn't fight the storm, it simply allows it. And in the same way, awareness doesn't resist what moves through it. It simply holds it, without turning it into a personal wound. But here is the radical question. What if there was never actually a separate you for it to happen to? Think about those moments when you are so deeply absorbed in what you love that the sense of me falls away. Maybe you're reading a book that pulls you into another world. Maybe you're playing music and the notes seem to pour through you without effort. Maybe you're standing before a breathtaking sunset, lost in its beauty. In those moments, where is the one who suffers? There is no separate self standing apart, no voice in the background judging, worrying, or narrating. There is only reading, only music, only beauty, pure experience, free of the burden of a personal center. This effortless openness, this aware presence without boundaries is your natural state. It does not need to be manufactured or forced. It is already here, quietly waiting beneath the noise of thought. Suffering only becomes possible when awareness contracts, when it folds itself into the belief of being a limited somebody, a character who can be threatened, disappointed, or broken. But here's the liberating truth, that contraction is not your essence, it is only a habit of mind, a reflex of thought, a mistake in identification. And like all habits, it can be seen clearly, and when seen clearly, it begins to dissolve. The old saying captures this perfectly. Pain is inevitable, but someone has to volunteer to suffer. Yes, life will always include moments of discomfort. The body ages, changes, and sometimes aches. Loved ones come and go. Situations don't always match our preferences. Loss, uncertainty, and impermanence are woven into the fabric of being human. But turning these natural experiences into personal suffering requires a story about a separate men being victimized by life. Without that story, without that imagined self, what remains? Just life unfiltered, unresisted, unfolding moment by moment, like a river flowing, like clouds drifting, like the earth endlessly turning. Sometimes the flow of life feels pleasant, sometimes unpleasant, sometimes light, sometimes heavy, but always, always changing, like weather patterns across a vast sky. And when you really look, you see nothing here is a personal attack. Nothing here is truly aimed at you. Still, it's natural to protest. You may say, but I do feel like someone separate. I do feel like a person who can be hurt. And of course you do. That feeling of separateness, the sense of being a solid, personal me, standing apart from life, is perhaps the most convincing illusion in existence. It is so persuasive, so constant seeming, that it feels like truth itself. Yet even this powerful sense of identity is just another appearance in awareness, rising and fading like everything else. Notice how this sense of me shifts and changes throughout your day. When you are lost in worry about the future, the self feels heavy, urgent, overwhelming. When you're defending your opinions, the self feels sharp and armored, ready to fight. When you're comparing yourself with others, the self becomes the star of its own fragile drama. It feels undeniable. But then, look closer. What about those moments when you are simply present, immersed in life as it is? When you are watching a sunset without commentary, or listening to a bird's song without judgment, or washing the dishes with quiet attention, where is that separate self? In those moments, the me has vanished, and yet awareness is still here, fully alive. This is why Zen practice is often described so simply as just sitting, not sitting as someone trying to get somewhere, not as someone struggling to become enlightened, not even as someone doing meditation, just sitting, pure presence without a center, pure being without a doer. And in those moments, who is there to suffer? There is no sufferer, only awareness being aware, presence being present, life happening effortlessly. Of course, the mind will not stop its storytelling. That's what minds do. They spin tales, create problems, project fears, and imagine threats. But here is the key. You don't have to believe every story your mind tells. You don't have to step into every drama as the starring role. Instead, you can meet suffering with a simple noticing. Here's a story about being hurt. Here's a wave of feeling about being wronged. Here's a ripple of anxiety about what might come. You can let these stories and sensations appear without becoming them. You can remain as the spacious awareness in which they pass through. And this does not make you cold or detached. Quite the opposite. When you are not swallowed up in your own personal drama, something beautiful opens, the capacity for true compassion. You find you can meet life with clarity instead of reactivity. You can respond wisely instead of reflexively. Compassion flows most freely when there is no tight, contracted me to defend. Think of a loving parent holding their child during a tantrum. The parent doesn't take the screams personally. They don't create a new story about being attacked or disrespected. They simply remain steady, calm, and tender, responding not with suffering, but with care. This is how you can meet your own difficult emotions as well. Anger, sadness, fear, frustration, all can be held the way a parent holds a child. Not resisted, not identified with, but embraced in a field of gentle awareness. You don't have to become the storm. You can be the sky that allows the storm. And in that, allowing, something softer than suffering begins to shine through. Love itself. Oh, anger is arising. Sadness is flowing through. Fear is visiting for a while. Yet notice, no one is being personally attacked by these natural human movements. They're like passing weather storms, breezes, and rains that come and go. Awareness itself remains untouched, like the wide open sky. The suffering we're so familiar with, that sense of being a victim of life, of being singled out by difficulty, of believing this should not be happening to me. All of that rests on the illusion of a separate self. Without that illusion, suffering collapses. What remains is simply life flowing in its rawness, sometimes soft, sometimes harsh, always alive, always changing, always okay. This isn't something you have to climb toward, or a state you must achieve through years of effort. It's already your natural condition, right now. Look closely. The awareness listening to these words. Does it feel burdened? Does it feel like it's suffering? Or is it simply here, still, open, peaceful? Even if thoughts are bubbling with complaints, even if emotions are rippling with discomfort, awareness itself remains untouchable. That untouched awareness is what you are. It has no wounds, no history, no need for defense. It is the one that was never born and will never die. And for that reason, it is the one for whom suffering is not possible, because there is no separate someone inside of it to suffer. And once this begins to sink in, a new question naturally arises, almost like a whisper. If there's no separate me to suffer, then where exactly do I end and everything else begins? On the surface, the answer seems obvious. Most of us have been taught that I end at the skin and the world begins outside of my body. My hands, my arms, my torso, these are mine. The trees, the sky, the buildings, those are not. Clear and simple, or is it? Let's look more carefully. Right now, listen. You may hear traffic rumbling outside, the hum of an air conditioner, the call of birds, or the quiet rustle of life around you. Where are these sounds taking place? Are they truly outside of you, or are they arising inside awareness? Because if you can hear them, they are already appearing within your experience. Now look, the walls of the room, the furniture, the window opening onto the sky, all of these things seem to be out there, but where do they appear? They appear here, within your seeing, within your consciousness. If you can see them, they are not outside your experience. They are woven into it. This is where things become very interesting. Every single thing you have ever known, every person you've met, every place you've traveled, every sunset, every sorrow, every triumph has only ever appeared within your awareness. You have never had direct access to a world out there. What you have always touched, tasted, seen, heard, and felt is the presence of those experiences within consciousness. And now the question deepens. Where is the line between awareness and its contents? Where does awareness end and the experience begin? Can you draw that line? Can you peel apart the knower from the known, the seer from the seen, the hearer? Try to find it, you can't. It's impossible. Awareness and what arises in awareness are not two separate things. They're like wetness and water, like heat and fire. You cannot have one without the other, and you cannot pull them apart into independent pieces. This means something radical. Everything you call the world is appearing in what you are. The boundary between self and world begins to dissolve. What you took to be out there has always been in here, inside this open, borderless presence. Not in your brain. That too is only another passing appearance within awareness, a pattern of sensations, thoughts, and images arising and dissolving in the vast openness of knowing. Not in your body either, for the body itself is something being noticed, something illuminated by awareness, not the source of awareness. It all arises within the same infinite space of pure, silent presence. Most people spend their whole lives convinced that they are small beings living inside a gigantic, indifferent universe, tiny conscious creatures trapped inside fragile bodies, peering out through two eyes, as if looking from a prison cell into an immense external reality. This story is so familiar that we rarely question it. But what if that story is upside down? What if the truth is the reverse? What if the entire universe, every sound, every sight, every thought, every sensation is actually appearing within the limitless openness of what you are? What if reality is not out there, but unfolding within the vast field of awareness that is your true nature? This isn't abstract philosophy or poetic metaphor. You can check this directly, right now. Everything you are aware of, this page, these words, the sounds in your environment, the sensations in your body, even the thought arising in your mind about whether this makes sense, are all appearing inside awareness. And you are that awareness, not the contents of it, not a fragment of it, but the very openness in which all of it shows up. So, the truth is astonishingly intimate. Everything is literally appearing in you. The sounds around you, they're in you. The sights before your eyes, they're in you. The subtle feelings in your chest, the restless flow of thoughts in your head, even your sense of having a body, all of it is appearing in the boundless space of your awareness. And when you see this, everything changes. The relationship you thought you had with the world dissolves. Instead of being a separate individual, observing a world from the outside, you discover yourself as the very space in which the entire world arises. Instead of being a guest in a foreign house, you realize you are the house itself, the vast, open, unbroken medium of all experience. It's like standing at the shore and believing you are a single fragile wave, rising and falling, constantly at risk of disappearing. Then suddenly, you realize you are not merely a wave, you are the ocean itself. Every wave, every ripple, every storm, every calm, are nothing but the ocean moving in countless forms. There has never been anything apart from the ocean. It is ocean, through and through. And when this is seen, something profound and tender unfolds. The possibility of loneliness dissolves. How could you ever be lonely when everything appears within you? How could you ever be isolated when you are the very space that holds mountains and rivers, stars and laughter, pain and joy? Separation itself becomes impossible. You are not cut off from the world. You are the intimacy in which the world arises. You are not an outsider. You are the very ground of belonging. Everything is closer than close, because everything is you. But notice, this realization doesn't inflate the ego. It doesn't make you believe you're more important, bigger, or better than others. In fact, it does the opposite. When you realize you are the awareness in which all things arise, you simultaneously recognize that every other being is the same awareness. There is not your awareness and their awareness. There is only awareness itself, appearing as countless perspectives. The person sitting quietly next to you on a train, that's awareness experiencing itself as a person. The dog barking down the street, that's awareness living as a dog. The wind moving through the trees, that's awareness expressing itself as sound and movement. The tree itself, that's awareness knowing itself as stillness, as rooted life. Everything is one seamless, undivided reality, not a flat sameness, not a dull oneness where everything loses its uniqueness, but a radiant wholeness in which diversity blossoms freely. This is what the Zen masters mean when they speak of no separation. It doesn't mean that differences vanish or individuality dissolves into a bland soup. You will still laugh in your way, cry in your way, carry your memories, and walk your path. You will still have your distinct personality, your voice, your preferences. And yet beneath all the variety there is the silent unity of being, the awareness in which all forms dance. It is like the ocean again. Every wave is unique. Some are towering, some are gentle, some crash, some roll slowly, but all are water, inseparable from the ocean. Likewise, every experience, every being, every moment is different, yet all are expressions of the same awareness. When this truth is not only understood, but felt directly, life softens. So the edges of fear, the weight of separation, the ache of loneliness, these begin to melt. What remains is intimacy with everything, a vast belonging that no circumstance can take away. All beings appear as unique, with their own personalities, their own stories, their own particular shapes and colors. Yet beneath all these differences lies the same essence, the one consciousness shining in countless forms. Like light refracted through a prism, it appears as diversity, but its source is singular, pure, indivisible. When this begins to dawn on you, the world itself changes. Suddenly, you begin to notice it everywhere. When you meet someone's eyes, you no longer see only a separate person with their history and personality. You sense your own awareness looking back at you, as though a mirror had been placed before your soul. When you watch a sunset, you recognize that you are not simply standing apart, admiring beauty from a distance. The radiance, the colors, the fading glow, they are arising within the vast openness of your awareness. You are not separate from the beauty. You are the awareness in which beauty becomes possible. Even in the simplest act of listening to music, this truth shines through. Where exactly is the line between the listener, the listening, and the music? The sound fills the air, vibrations stir the senses, emotions ripple within the heart, and yet it is not three things. It is one seamless movement of life, one continuous dance of experience. From this understanding, a profound peace arises naturally, not a peace you create or struggle for, but a peace that reveals itself when the illusion of separation softens. You realize that you are not a small, fragile being trying to survive in a vast and threatening universe. You are the limitless space in which the universe itself arises and passes away. How could anything threaten what you truly are, when everything that appears, including the very thought of threat, appears within you? This recognition also awakens a natural compassion. For when you see that every being is the same awareness you are, expressed in another form, how could you wish them harm? It would be as senseless as your left hand striking your right hand. Separation dissolves, and with it, the possibility of cruelty. Kindness becomes the only natural response. Love becomes effortless, because there is no longer another to defend against. Still, a question often arises. If this is true, why don't I feel it all the time? And that is a natural question. The illusion of separation is powerful and convincing. It is like being so deeply absorbed in a film that you forget you are watching a screen. The story pulls you in. You laugh, you weep, you fear, you hope. In those moments, the screen disappears from awareness, though it never actually goes anywhere. So, it is with your true nature, your essential being, as limitless awareness is always here, always untouched. Whether you pay attention to it or not, it remains the silent background of every experience. The feeling of separation comes and goes like clouds passing through the sky, but the sky itself never changes. What you are remains constant, open, clear, boundless. Sometimes this recognition unfolds slowly, like the gradual brightening before sunrise. At first, the light is faint, almost hidden, but as the dawn continues, everything becomes illuminated. At other times, recognition comes like lightning, sudden, unmistakable, and impossible to ignore. In a single instant, everything is seen differently. Yet, in truth, whether slow or sudden, it is not an achievement. It is not something earned through effort or won through striving. It is simply a recognition, a remembering of what has always been so. like realizing the necklace you've been searching for was already hanging around your neck. The boundaries you once believed in, the line between you and the world, between inside and outside, were never truly there. They were like lines traced on water, appearing real for a moment, then dissolving instantly. The divisions were conceptual, mental, imagined, and when you truly look with clear seeing, you find there is no place where you end and the world begins. There is only one seamless, boundless experiencing unfolding. This experiencing has no center, for where would it be? There is no fixed point that experience radiates from, nor does it have edges. For can you find the place where awareness stops? You cannot. It is not located anywhere, because all places themselves appear within it. It is not limited by anything, because every limit you can name is itself an appearance in it. This open space of pure being is what you are, not the personality with its name, its history, its likes and dislikes, not the fragile image of me that flickers through thought. Those too are appearances within awareness. You are the vastness in which that person arises. You are the open sky in which the passing clouds of identity drift. You are, and have always been, the ocean of consciousness itself, immeasurable, unbounded, unbroken. This isn't something mystical or otherworldly. It's not hidden in ancient texts or locked away in secret teachings. It's the most ordinary, the most immediate thing there is. It's what's happening right now as you listen to these words. Awareness. Simple, open, unadorned awareness. The pure fact of being conscious. The pure fact of being. And here's the astonishing part. You don't need to add anything to it. You don't need to make awareness more aware. You don't need to purify it, fix it, or improve it. It is already complete. Being aware of awareness is simply being itself, boundaryless, open, without edges. When this becomes clear, when you really see that you are not inside the world, but the world is inside you, a quiet shift happens. You realize something even more beautiful. You've been searching for belonging, for the place you're meant to be, the home that will finally feel like yours. But how do you belong to a place that is appearing within you, where you've always been? There's a truth so simple, so obvious, that it's almost always overlooked. Every question you've ever asked about where you should be has been asked from right here. Every longing to be somewhere else, every plan to travel, to move, to escape, has been imagined from this exact place of awareness. Think of the countless moments you've wondered, am I in the right place? Maybe lying in bed at night, feeling restless, imagining that your life should be more exciting. Maybe sitting at work, wishing you were at home. Maybe being at home, wishing you were anywhere but there. But notice, where were you when those thoughts arose? Always here. You were exactly where you were, and you could not possibly have been anywhere else. Even the thought of elsewhere was happening here. This might sound almost too simple, even silly, but it is profound. You have never, not even for a single instant, been anywhere other than here. And here is not a dot on a map. It is not a set of coordinates or a pin you can drop on GPS. Here is not a location. It is the very condition of all locations, the ground of all moments. Wherever you go, you are here. Whenever you are here. When you were a child playing in your backyard, you were here. When you walked nervously into your first day of school, you were here. When you sat in airplanes, trains, cars, crossing landscapes and oceans, you were here. When you moved to new homes, new cities, new chapters of your life, here moved with you, because here is not where you are. It is what. And yet we spend so much of our lives trying to be somewhere else. We tell ourselves that fulfillment is waiting in another place, another career, another relationship, another moment, just around the corner. We believe there's a perfect home, a perfect job, a perfect time, and that once we get there, we'll finally be whole. But here's the paradox. We're asking how to get home while sitting in our living room. We're searching for the present moment while already being in it. We're trying to arrive in the very place we've never left. This habit of seeking, of imagining happiness in some other location, creates a subtle but painful kind of exile. We become tourists in our own lives, forever scanning the horizon for the next destination, the next upgrade, the next version of ourselves. Meanwhile, we overlook the only reality that has ever been available, this moment, this presence, this here. But here's the beauty of this recognition. When you truly see, not just think but deeply see, that you have never been anywhere other than here, something profound shifts. You no longer feel the desperate need to get somewhere else in order to feel whole, safe, or complete. You stop postponing peace to a future moment or distant place. You realize that whatever freedom, contentment, or aliveness you are seeking, it cannot possibly exist anywhere other than here, because here is all there has ever been. This doesn't mean that you stop traveling, stop changing, or stop creating new circumstances. Life still moves. Journeys still unfold. Circumstances still shift. But the difference is, you stop expecting those changes to deliver you to a fundamentally different reality. You stop believing that there will finally make you feel at home, because you begin to recognize that wherever you go, here goes with you. And wherever you go, you take yourself along, and the self that travels with you is always right here. So, pause for a moment and notice where you actually are. Not the label of your street address or the name of your city, but the immediate, intimate, undeniable reality of simply being here. Notice how here isn't really a geographical point at all. It's more like the vast stage upon which every scene of your life plays out. It's the open field in which all experiences arise and dissolve. Think about your dreams at night. You might dream you are walking through Paris, climbing a high mountain, or revisiting your childhood home. But where is the dreaming actually happening? Not in Paris, not on a mountain, not in the past. It's happening here, in the bed where your body lies, in the awareness that you are, in the very same way. All your experiences of being somewhere are happening in the spacious presence of this timeless here. This is why seeking peace, enlightenment, or fulfillment somewhere else never truly works. You're looking for something that can only ever be discovered where you already are. It's like running frantically around the house, searching for the glasses that are resting quietly on your head. The very act of seeking blinds you to what is already here, already present, already complete. The ancient Zen masters understood this perfectly. They didn't tell students to climb mountains, to seek special visions, or to travel to holy lands in order to find the truth. Instead, they pointed right back to the immediate reality of this moment. The Buddha you seek is the mind that seeks, they would say. The place you want to reach is the ground beneath your feet. They knew that the great mistake of the restless mind is to believe that here is not enough, that it's too ordinary, too familiar, too plain, to possibly hold the sacred. But enlightenment is not about escaping to somewhere extraordinary. It is not about reaching a place more exotic, more spiritual, more different than your everyday life. Awakening is not a journey away from where you are. It's the recognition of where you have always been. And this recognition is so disarmingly simple that the mind almost laughs in disbelief. This is one of the great paradoxes of the spiritual path. The destination is exactly where you began. The treasure you have been searching for is buried in your own backyard. The home you long to find is the place you never actually left. All seeking ultimately collapses into the profound realization that you were already here all along, and you could never have been anywhere else. And when this recognition truly sinks in, not as an idea, but as a living truth, something within you relaxes. The constant background hum of striving to be elsewhere dissolves. The restless tension of thinking you're missing out on life by being where you are begins to fade. You recognize, with quiet certainty, that wherever life unfolds, it is unfolding here. Wherever the celebration of existence is happening, it is happening now. Wherever the dance of reality is alive, it is alive in this very place. The party you thought was out there is revealed to be right here. Wherever the action is, it is always here. And understanding this doesn't make you passive, lazy, or unmotivated. It doesn't mean you lose ambition or desire. It simply changes the quality of how you move through life. You can still have preferences. You can still make choices, set goals, and work toward your dreams. You can still explore new places, meet new people, and reshape your circumstances. But the difference is this: now you move from fullness rather than from emptiness, from presence rather than absence, from this moment rather than from some imaginary elsewhere that never arrives. People sometimes worry that if they accept where they are, they will stop striving, stop creating, stop dreaming. But the truth is the opposite. When you finally root yourself in here, you unlock your deepest intelligence, your clearest intuition, your most authentic desires. From here, action arises naturally and meaningfully. But when you're always mentally elsewhere, chasing a better tomorrow or regretting a lost yesterday, you're operating from fantasy, not reality, from dissatisfaction rather than clarity. Real change only comes from real presence, not from imagined futures, not from the stories your mind spins about what could be, but from the living truth of what is right now. Think about how much energy goes into being somewhere else in your mind. How many hours are spent replaying the past, rehearsing the future, comparing, wishing, imagining, regretting. All of that effort is happening here, now, in this awareness. Yet it creates the illusion of distance, as if you are living a life that is one step removed from reality itself. But when you gather all that scattered attention and bring it back to here, something miraculous happens. Life sharpens, colors brighten, sounds deepen, even ordinary moments shimmer with aliveness. A breeze across your skin feels like a gift. The face of a friend becomes radiant. A sip of water tastes profound. You realize that you've been missing the movie of your own life because you were too busy thinking about other movies you could be watching. Here is not a consolation prize. It's not what you settle for when better places fall through. Here is the only place where life ever actually unfolds. It is where love is felt, where joy sparkles, where beauty reveals itself, where peace takes root. Here is where your lungs fill with air, where your heart beats its steady rhythm, where awareness shines its quiet light. And here is not small or narrow. It is not limiting. It is infinitely spacious. It includes everything, every place, every time, every possibility. When you are really here, you are everywhere. When you are truly present, you taste eternity. When you rest fully in where you are, you discover you are exactly where you belong. This recognition even changes how you relate to restlessness. Instead of believing restlessness is a signal that you need to escape or find a different life, you begin to see it as energy-seeking expression right here. Instead of interpreting dissatisfaction as proof you're in the wrong place, you begin to recognize it as an invitation to deepen into this place, into this moment, more fully than before. For many, the spiritual search begins with a haunting sense of wrongness, the wrong place, the wrong path, the wrong self. But it ends with a dissolving of that illusion. It ends with the luminous recognition that there is no wrong place to be, because there is only one place you can be here, always here, eternally here. And this here is anything but dull. It is not static, frozen, or lifeless. It is the most dynamic, creative, and alive space there is. It is the womb of every moment. It is the stage upon which the future arrives, the present lives, and the past dissolves. It is the meeting point where the infinite takes form, where eternity brushes against time, where the mystery of existence dances into expression. And when you stop trying to escape here, you realize here was always the escape you were looking for. When you stop trying to find the right place, you realize you were already standing in it. When you stop asking how to get home, you finally see that you never left. The only place you have ever been is here. The only place you will ever be is here. The only place where anything has ever happened or ever will happen is here. And this here, astonishingly, is exactly where you are meant to be. When you let that truth settle deep into your bones, another realization dawns. All your searching for meaning and purpose has been happening here too. Which makes you wonder, what if the meaning you've been chasing has been here the whole time? What if the purpose you seek is not hidden in a distant future, but woven into the very fabric of this eternal here? Here's something you might have noticed about trees. They don't spend their days wondering why they exist. They don't lie awake at night wrestling with existential crises about their purpose in life. They don't question whether they're fulfilling their destiny or making the right choices. They just grow. They reach toward the sunlight, extend their roots into the dark soil, and sway with the winds of change. They blossom in spring, let go in autumn, stand still in winter, and burst with new life again when the seasons turn. They live with an effortless spontaneity that feels completely natural because it is natural. And here's the remarkable thing, they are perfectly fulfilled in this, not because they solved the riddle of their existence or unlocked some cosmic mission statement, but simply because they are being what they are. A tree doesn't second-guess itself. It doesn't compare its shape to the tree across the meadow. It doesn't worry whether it should be a better oak, a taller pine, or a more productive apple tree. It simply expresses itself as it was born to do, without hesitation, without resistance, without interference. What if you could live like that? What if you could stop torturing yourself with the question, what's my purpose? And start noticing what's already flowing through you? What if the meaning you've been searching for isn't something you need to hunt down or manufacture, but something that reveals itself the moment you stop interfering? Most of us spend enormous amounts of energy trying to figure it all out. We read books on finding our life purpose. We take personality tests and career assessments. We meditate on our calling, analyze our gifts, and search for our mission as if it's hidden in some distant corner of the universe. And yet often, the harder we search, the more confused and restless we become. But here's a radical possibility. What if the search itself is the very thing creating the confusion? What if constantly asking, what's my purpose, is like constantly asking, what's the point of breathing? Some things don't need a point beyond themselves. Some things are the point. Right now, your heart is beating, not for a reason, not to prove anything, not to achieve a goal. It beats because that is what hearts do. It beats because life itself moves through it. And in doing so, it fulfills its purpose perfectly. Your heart doesn't need to understand its role to play it flawlessly. In the same way, your lungs expand and contract. Your body regulates its temperature. Your cells renew themselves. Your awareness shines without effort. None of this requires planning or analysis. It happens with breathtaking intelligence, spontaneously, moment by moment. Life is living itself through you, with a wisdom far greater than your thoughts. So what if your entire existence is like that too? What if you don't need to figure out your purpose because you're already living it perfectly by simply being alive? What if the universe is expressing itself through you in exactly the way it needs to, without needing help from your restless mind? This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent. Trees aren't passive, they are astonishingly active. They grow, adapt, seek nourishment, and stretch into every opportunity the earth and sky offer them. But their activity doesn't come from self-doubt or mental struggle. It comes from their nature, from the intelligence that pulses within them. They don't force growth, they trust it. When you stop trying to construct your purpose, and instead begin to trust the purpose that is already unfolding through you, something shifts, something softens. You begin to notice a natural flow in your life. Certain things feel effortless, energizing, alive. Certain directions feel obvious, not because you analyze them into being, but because they align with what is already wanting to happen through you. Perhaps you find yourself drawn to comfort someone in difficulty without needing to ask why. Perhaps you naturally create beauty wherever you go, through words, gestures, kindness, or art, without needing to justify it. Perhaps you feel pulled to nurture, to build, to teach, to heal, to create, to explore. These impulses are not accidents. They are the branches of your being reaching toward the sun. And in following them, not as a duty but as a natural expression, you discover that you were never missing your purpose. You are your purpose. Just as the tree fulfills itself by growing, you fulfill yourself by being. Maybe you have a gift for bringing out the best in others, or a natural ease in solving complex problems that leave others tangled. Maybe you carry within you a lightness that makes people laugh and remember the joy of being alive. These aren't skills you carefully engineered or roles you consciously chose. They are movements of life flowing through you, expressions that emerge naturally when you're not trying to be someone else. This spontaneous flow that is your purpose, not a grand mission statement carved into the heavens, not a heavy burden you need to carry on your shoulders, but the simple, uncontrived way life expresses itself through your. It's as natural as a river flowing downhill, as effortless as a flower turning its face toward the sun, as ordinary as a breath filling your lungs. It doesn't need justification. It doesn't require a reason. It only asks for one thing: your permission to let it be. But so often, we block this natural unfolding. We interfere. We tell ourselves that our quiet interests aren't important enough. We compare our gifts to the loud standards society sets for what is valuable. We override our intuition with the heavy voice of should, what we think will be respected, admired, or profitable. We abandon what feels alive in us for what looks more serious, impressive, or acceptable to others. This is like a tree bending itself away from the light, trying to twist its trunk into the shape of another tree because it believes it must become something else to be worthy. It creates strain, distortion, and struggle, and it rarely were. A pine tree cannot become an oak, no matter how much effort it expends. In the same way, when you fight against your own nature, you drain yourself trying to sustain an identity that was never meant to be yours. When you align with your true nature, however, something extraordinary happens. Suddenly, you discover an endless wellspring of energy and creativity. Effort feels lighter. Growth feels natural. You are no longer forcing, but flowing. The ancient Zen insight is that everything in existence is already whole, already complete, already perfect exactly as it is, not perfect in the static sense, frozen, finished, incapable of change, but perfect in the sense that each moment is exactly as it must be, including you, including your life as it is right now. This doesn't mean you stop growing or evolving. It doesn't mean you never change direction or take on challenges, but your growth comes from fullness rather than from lack. You evolve like a tree, sending out new branches, naturally, organically, not like a prisoner trying to escape a cell. When you trust this, something deep within relaxes. The exhausting struggle to become worthy enough dissolves. The lifelong battle to prove yourself quiets down. You recognize that you're already worthy, not because of your achievements, not because of your usefulness, but because you exist. Your existence itself is the proof of your belonging. You don't need to earn your place here. You're here, which means you already belong. And in that belonging, your natural gifts begin to shine. Instead of forcing yourself to develop skills that feel alien, you begin to nurture the gifts that are already flowing through you with ease. Instead of chasing goals that look impressive but drain your spirit, you move toward what feels alive and real. Instead of working against yourself, you learn to work with yourself. Of course, this requires a certain kind of courage. The courage to trust that your authentic expression is valuable even if it doesn't look like anyone else's. The courage to believe that life knows what it's doing when it expresses itself through your particular form. The courage to trust the intelligence that is already guiding you, even when it takes you down paths others might not understand. And this isn't a blind leap of faith, it's something you can test right now. Notice what happens when you follow your genuine impulses compared to when you push yourself into roles that feel unnatural. Notice the difference in your energy, your enthusiasm, your clarity. Notice how life itself seems to open doors more easily when you're aligned with your true nature. The river flows smoother when it follows its own course. When you begin to live this way, purpose is no longer a riddle to solve. It's a song to be sung, a dance to be danced, a river to be flowed. This alignment isn't always obvious in the beginning. It can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, because for so long we've been conditioned to distrust our natural impulses. From an early age, we're told that what comes easily can't possibly be valuable, that effort and struggle are the only true measures of worth. We're taught to look outside ourselves for direction, for approval, for validation, for permission, instead of looking within. Over time, the quiet voice of our own inner guidance becomes drowned out by the noise of the world. We forget how to distinguish our authentic voice from the countless voices telling us who we should be, what we should want, and how we should live. But that authentic voice never disappears. It remains steady and patient, waiting for us to remember it. It is the voice that instantly knows what feels true and what feels forced. It is the subtle sense that recognizes sincerity without needing explanation. It is the pulse of energy that arises when you engage in something that aligns with your being, and the heaviness that settles in when you move against it. This inner wisdom is the compass of your own life, guiding you gently but persistently toward your most natural expression. When you begin to listen to this voice and actually follow where it leads, you make a discovery that changes everything. Life becomes less about striving and more about unfolding. Your days stop being a performance of who you think you should be, and instead become an authentic expression of who you already are. Work begins to feel like play, joyful, alive, and self-renewed. Relationships shift, becoming more honest, more rooted in real connection, rather than roles or expectations. Creativity flows without strain, like a river finding its natural path. Everything begins to feel lighter, freer, more alive, because you are finally living from your aliveness, rather than from second-hand ideas about what life is supposed to be. This is what Zen teachers mean when they speak of Wu Wei, effortless action. It doesn't mean passivity or the absence of movement. It means action that arises without resistance, action that flows from your essential nature rather than from forced mental effort. It's like a river effortlessly winding around rocks, adjusting without hesitation, perfectly attuned to each obstacle and each opening. The river doesn't need to stop and plan its route. It simply knows Wu Wei is natural, spontaneous, appropriate to each moment, and in harmony with the whole. The purpose you've been seeking isn't a hidden treasure waiting to be found or a mountain to be climbed. It's not something you need to manufacture it is already alive within you, expressing itself in countless ways, in your compassion, your curiosity, your creativity, your quiet capacity to love and to be loved. Your task isn't to create it, but to allow it, to let it breathe through you, unforced and unfiltered. You don't need to add anything to this expression. You don't need to amplify it or make it grander than it is. Your purpose is both simple and profound. Like a tree growing toward the light, you are meant to lean into your own natural becoming. Your purpose doesn't need to save the world or change the course of history or impress anyone. It simply needs to be true to you. And when you live this way, authentically, naturally, something remarkable happens. Not only do you feel more alive, more whole, and more at peace, but your very existence becomes a blessing to everything around you. Because authenticity is never private. When one person expresses their true nature, it enriches the entire fabric of life. Your genuine expression becomes a gift to existence itself. Think of the tree again. It doesn't grow for itself alone. In reaching toward the light, it creates oxygen for breathing. It offers shelter to birds. It brings beauty and balance to the landscape. Yet the tree never stops to think, I must create oxygen. I must provide shelter. I must add beauty. These things happen naturally as a consequence of it being fully itself. Your authentic expression works in the same way. When you are true to your nature, you create ripples of nourishment, inspiration, and love without effort or intention. You uplift others simply by being real. You bring clarity into confusion simply by standing as yourself. You contribute to the wholeness of the world without trying to. This is the purpose that asks for no purpose. The quiet paradox, when you simply allow yourself to be what you already are, fully, honestly, unapologetically, you fulfill the deepest meaning of existence. Trust the intelligence that breathed you into life to guide your unfolding. Let it move through you as effortlessly as the river flows and the flower opens. And in that trust, you'll discover that this simple authenticity, this ordinary aliveness is more profound and more transformative than any grand purpose you could ever invent. What you're looking for, there's something almost comical, almost tragic too, about the spiritual search when you really examine it. People sit on cushions for decades, straining to discover peace. But what allows them to sit at all? A still, quiet awareness that is already present. They strain to awaken. But what gives them the ability to even recognize the idea of awakening? An intelligence that is already awake. They look for the self, tirelessly, restlessly. But who is it that does the looking? The very self they claim to have lost. It's like wandering through a dark room, shining a flashlight into every corner, trying desperately to find the flashlight itself. The very fact that you can look means you already hold what you're looking for. But somehow this becomes the most overlooked truth in all of human life. Most seeking begins with a whisper of lack. Something feels incomplete. Something feels off. A quiet ache runs through the heart. So naturally, the search begins. Books are devoured, teachers are followed, techniques are practiced, pilgrimages are taken, but woven through every effort is a hidden assumption that what you seek is elsewhere, in some future moment, in some secret state you don't yet have access to. The search itself reinforces the sense of absence. But pause for a moment. Ask, what is it that longs for enlightenment? What is it that feels incomplete and begins the search? Look closely. It is awareness itself, consciousness, the very thing you are. You are using Buddha nature to search for Buddha nature. You are using the light to hunt for the light. You are employing the true self to seek the true self. It's the ultimate case of missing the obvious, like standing in the middle of the ocean, dying of thirst, reaching out a cup for water, or like eyes straining to catch a glimpse of themselves, not realizing they are already seeing. This is why seeking often turns into its own form of suffering. The more you practice, the more distant the goal seems. The more techniques you collect, the more complicated the path appears. The more you read about awakening, the more unenlightened you feel. The very effort to arrive becomes the proof that you are not yet there. But what if not there yet is only a story? What if the seeker you believe yourself to be is just a costume, an identity momentarily worn by awareness itself? And what if the awareness wearing the costume is the very thing you've been searching for all along? Notice right now something is aware of these words. Something is effortlessly present, silently registering each letter and sound. That something is not on a path. It is not in process. It is not broken, lacking, or incomplete. It does not meditate. Meditation arises within it. It does not strain for awakening. Awakening is simply its natural condition. Like clouds drifting through the sky, the search comes and goes. The sense of lack comes and goes. Identities rise and fall, but the open sky itself never moves, never changes, never ceases. That sky is what you are. And when you glimpse this, even for a moment, the entire search softens. You see the humor in it all. You see that the journey was never about arriving at some distant destination. It was about noticing what has always already been here. You cannot find what you are. You can only stop overlooking it. Enlightenment is its very nature. When this recognition truly lands, it can feel disorienting at first, almost unsettling. Why? Because it overturns everything you thought you were striving for. It reveals that what you've been trying to achieve, you already are. Every state you've been desperate to reach, you are already in. Every realization you've been waiting for, you've already had. The great irony of the spiritual path is that it doesn't actually lead anywhere. It does not carry you across distant landscapes into some final shining arrival. It simply loops back to where you never left, back to what you already are. The journey ends in the place that was carrying you all along. This does not mean that spiritual practice is pointless. Quite the opposite. Meditation, prayer, yoga, chanting, contemplation, all of these are exquisite expressions of your true nature. They have value not because they take you somewhere else, but because they quiet the noise long enough for you to notice what has always been here. They don't transform you into something new. They reveal the clarity that has never left you. It's like polishing a mirror that was never truly dirty. The mirror does not become more mirror through the polishing. Its nature was always reflective, always clear. The polishing simply helps you recognize what was there from the start. The difficulty arises when practice itself becomes another form of seeking, when meditation is used as a tool to become peaceful, rather than as a recognition that peace is the very ground in which meditation arises, when prayer is used as a way to reach the divine, rather than to notice the divine presence that is already the one praying, when techniques are used to find yourself, forgetting that it is already the self who seeks, who practices, who longs. This kind of seeking energy is like a dog chasing its own tail. The harder it runs, the further away the tail appears. The more desperate the pursuit, the more elusive the goal. But the moment the dog pauses, the moment it stops spinning in frantic circles, it sees the simple truth. The tail was never separate. It was always part of itself. So too with the seeker. The seeker and the sought are not two different things. They were never apart. You might ask, but if I'm already enlightened, why don't I feel enlightened? That is such an important question, and its very form reveals the subtle misunderstanding that enlightenment is a feeling, that it must look like constant bliss, or perpetual clarity, or an endless state of peace. But what if enlightenment is not a state at all? What if it is not a mood, not an experience, not a feeling? What if enlightenment is the awareness in which all feelings, moods, and experiences come and go? Sometimes this awareness knows itself through joy, sometimes through confusion, sometimes through deep calm, sometimes through restlessness. But in every case, the awareness itself, the knowing itself, remains unchanged. It is like the screen on which movies are projected, whether it holds a comedy, a tragedy, a love story, or a horror film. The screen itself is unstained, unshaken, unchanged. Your awakened nature is the same. It is not altered by the experiences that move across it. It is not elevated by spiritual states, nor diminished by ordinary ones. It is the light by which every state is seen, the space in which every state appears, the knowing through which every moment is known. This realization can bring tremendous relief. It means you can lay down the exhausting project of trying to become someone else. You can stop using your current experience as proof of how far you have left to go. You can stop postponing peace and happiness until some distant spiritual arrival. You can rest in what is already here, already complete, already whole. But it can also stir resistance, because if you are already what you seek, then what becomes of the path? What becomes of growth, of progress, of the identity that has defined itself as a seeker? This resistance belongs to the ego mind. The ego has built its whole story around being the traveler on the path, the one progressing toward a better future. The ego loves the search because it gives it something to do, something to prove. It gains importance by saying, I am spiritual, I am on the path, I am making progress. It collects spiritual insights like trophies. It measures itself against others and finds satisfaction in being ahead or suffering in being behind. It thrives on comparison, on striving, on the endless horizon of almost there. But the moment the truth is seen, that what you are has never been missing, the ego trembles, because its whole drama is built on the illusion of distance. When there is no distance, there is no seeker. When there is no path, there is no traveler. And yet, paradoxically, the path remains, practice remains, growth remains, but they are seen differently, not as means to reach an end, but as the natural flowering of what you already are. Meditation becomes not a desperate search, but a quiet celebration. Prayer becomes not a request for something missing, but a recognition of what has never left. Practice remains, but the seeking dissolves. The search gives the mind a task, something to do, somewhere to go, someone to become. It builds a journey, a horizon, a destination. But your true nature doesn't need any of that. It has no maps, no milestones, no finish lines. It isn't striving to get anywhere, nor is it struggling to become anything, nor is it trying to achieve some higher or purer state. Your true nature is simply here, silent, open, aware, already at ease with whatever is unfolding. It is like water. Water doesn't push itself forward. It doesn't argue with gravity or plot its course. It simply flows downhill, finding its way naturally, without resistance, without calculation. In this same way, your being moves through life, spontaneous, effortless, completely attuned to each moment without needing a plan. When you recognize this, practice no longer feels like heavy work. It becomes light, playful, like a child exploring the world. Meditation is no longer a project of self-improvement, but a simple joy, the joy of resting in what you have always been. You sit not to escape life, but to fall into the heart of life. You study not to fill your mind with borrowed truths, but to recognize the wisdom that quietly beats within you already. You serve others not to accumulate merit, not to score spiritual points, but because love overflows when you stop damming the river. Compassion is not manufactured, it is released. This shift from seeking to being can unfold in many ways. For some, it is gradual, like dawn slowly coloring the horizon after a long night, the light gathering so subtly you barely notice the change until the world is bright. For others, it comes like lightning, a sudden flash that illuminates everything at once, leaving you forever changed in an instant. Yet whether it is slow or sudden, it is not really a transformation at all. It is a homecoming, a recognition of what has been true all along. The old Zen saying captures it well. You are perfect as you are, and you could use a little improvement. At first it sounds like a riddle, but look deeper. Your essential nature is already complete, already whole, already untouched by time or circumstance. Yet the way that nature expresses itself through your human life, through words, actions, choices, can always be polished, clarified, refined. The mirror is already flawless, but the dust upon it can be wiped away so that its brilliance shines without distortion. You don't practice to one day arrive at enlightenment. Practice itself is enlightenment, stretching its arms, breathing through you, finding new ways to express itself. This makes spiritual life softer, more natural, less anxious. Instead of straining after a distant ideal, you are simply allowing the radiance of your own being to shine through with more ease. Instead of struggling to become worthy of love, you begin to remember that you are love itself, vast, boundless, temporarily veiled by forgetfulness. Instead of hunting for peace as if it were lost, you notice that even the act of searching happens within a peace that has never moved. The search for enlightenment is nothing other than enlightenment, seeking its own reflection. The longing for awakening is awakening stirring within you, turning its gaze upon itself. The spiritual path is not a march from here to there, but spirit exploring its own depth through the dream of separation and the return to wholeness. Yet when the dream dissolves, you see there was no real departure, and thus no real return. You are what you've been looking for. You already hold what you believed was missing. You already stand where you thought you needed to go. The Buddha nature spoken of in countless sutras and texts, it is the one reading those very words, the enlightened awareness pointed to by teachers. It is the one listening to their voices. The true self revealed through every practice. It is the one doing the practices. This doesn't mean you should abandon meditation, study, or service. On the contrary, it means you can continue all of these, but from a place of fullness instead of hunger, from being instead of becoming, from love instead of lack. Then practice is no longer a desperate climb up a mountain, but a dance upon the summit that was always beneath your feet. And when this understanding settles deeply, when you cease trying to become what you already are, something remarkable dawns. You begin to notice clearly, simply, without doubt, that the peace you were seeking has never once been disturbed. It was here before the search began. It is here in the midst of the seeking, and it will be here long after the seeking has ended. Here's something you can test right now. Gently, without rushing, bring to mind the most stressful situation in your life at this moment. Perhaps it's a problem that keeps circling in your thoughts, a difficult relationship, a looming deadline, a worry about the future, or a heaviness that you carry in your heart. Let it come forward in your awareness. Feel the weight of it, the tension it creates in your body, the knot in your stomach, the racing of the mind, the sense of being overwhelmed. Now pause. Notice carefully. There is the stressful thought or feeling itself, sharp, restless, loud, but then there is also the one who is noticing it, the awareness that is watching. Ask yourself, is that awareness itself stressed, or is it calm, open, silently observing the storm, the way a vast, clear sky observes the passing of clouds? This simple recognition is one of the most liberating discoveries a human being can make. Even in the middle of your most chaotic moments, there is something in you that does not shake. Thoughts may be fast, emotions may be fiery, the body may feel heavy or tense, but the field in which all of this appears remains untouched, unmoved, utterly at peace. It is like being inside a house during a thunderstorm. The lightning flashes, the thunder roars, the rain lashes against the windows. The drama outside is intense, even frightening, yet inside the house there is a quiet room, always available, always undisturbed. You may forget about that quiet room while your attention is absorbed in the storm, but it has never left. It has been silently waiting, untouched by all the noise outside. Most of us were taught that peace is something we must create, something we must earn or achieve. We treat it as a state of mind to be built through effort, through meditation, relaxation, or by arranging life so that all problems are solved. We imagine peace is the opposite of stress, that it exists only when conflict is absent. But what if peace is not something you need to add to your life at all? What if it is already here, quietly present, the very background of every experience? Consider the ocean. On the surface, enormous waves may rise and crash. Storms may churn the waters into chaos. From above, it can look wild and violent, but dive deeper, just a little, and you enter a vast stillness that remains completely undisturbed. No matter how the surface is tossed about, the waves are real, the storms are real, but they never disturb the deep ocean. They are temporary movements of the same water. Your awareness is like that ocean depth. Thoughts, emotions, and sensations rise and fall on the surface, like waves. Some are gentle ripples, some are towering storms. Some feel blissful, others unbearable. Yet every single one of them arises in and dissolves back into the same boundless stillness. They are movements of mind and body, but not disturbances of awareness itself. This means that even your most painful, disturbing, or frightening thoughts are not as solid as they appear. They are temporary, passing currents floating in something that cannot be disturbed. Beneath the noise, beneath the turmoil, there is always this silent, steady presence, the awareness that is reading these words right now, and that awareness is already at peace.
Even your deepest anxiety is not separate from peace. Even your most overwhelming emotions rise and fall within a stillness that has never been shaken. What you truly are has never been touched by the turbulence passing through it.
You don't have to take this on faith, you can verify it right now. Notice, you are aware of thoughts moving through the mind. But does awareness itself think? Thoughts come and go like ripples on a pond, but the pond is not rippling, only its surface. Notice, you are aware of sounds appearing around you, but does awareness itself make a sound? Notice, you are aware of tension or sensation in your body, but is awareness tense? Is it heavy, or is it simply present, quietly noticing? What you find is that awareness is like space. Things arise in it, things pass through it, but nothing leaves a mark. A storm can shake the trees, rain can soak the ground, thunder can shake the air, but has the sky ever been damaged by the storm? The sky remains open, clear, immeasurable. In the same way, awareness remains perfectly peaceful, no matter what appears within it. This understanding changes the way you meet difficulty. Instead of trying to silence the mind, you rest in the awareness that already embraces the noise. Instead of wrestling with stress, anxiety, or sadness, you allow them to pass through, like weather, while you remain anchored in the sky-like stillness that holds them all. You begin to see that peace is not something fragile that stress can destroy. Peace is the background in which stress arises. It is like learning you don't need to calm the waves before you dive into the ocean. On the surface, the water may roar with movement, but a few feet down, stillness has never left. The depths do not need fixing. Only remember, you were never truly disturbed. You only got caught on the surface. And this is not a technique you must practice for years. It is not something you do. It is something you notice. The peace is not created. It is uncovered. The stillness is not fabricated. It is revealed. Sometimes this recognition comes easily in meditation. You sit, and slowly the chatter of thought fades into the background. Beneath it, you sense a vast silence, not the dead silence of absence, but the living silence in which all sounds arise, not emptiness that lacks, but emptiness so complete it overflows. This silence is your own nature, only temporarily hidden by the noise of attention. But you don't need meditation to find it. It is here in the middle of a crowded street, here in the middle of an argument, here in the middle of fear or grief or longing. Even when life is most turbulent, stillness is unshaken. Awareness does not move. This is why the Zen masters could face danger or loss without collapsing into despair. It was not that they never felt pain or fear. It was that they knew the secret to rest in the awareness that sees the pain. Instead of becoming entangled with it, they had found the center of the hurricane, the unmoving eye of stillness, present in every storm. When you glimpse this, even faintly, there is immense relief. You realize that peace does not require you to solve every problem, to silence every thought, or to heal every wound before you can rest. You realize that stillness is not waiting for your circumstances to be perfect. Peace was never conditional. It does not depend on outer calm or inner comfort. It does not come and go with moods or situations. It is like the sun, radiant, unwavering. Clouds may pass across the sky, hiding it from view, but they never diminish its brilliance. The sun shines whether seen or unseen. In the same way, your own awareness shines through every moment, steady, quiet, and free. This peaceful awareness is your true home. It is the ground beneath every step, the silent refuge behind every thought, the sanctuary that cannot be lost. No matter how far you seem to wander into stress, confusion, or self-doubt, you can always return here. In fact, you never truly leave it. You only lose sight of it. It is the one place in your experience that does not change, cannot be damaged, and never requires repair. It is like having a temple within you, a sacred space that you carry wherever you go. While the world outside shifts and trembles, this space remains untouched, steady, always available. Yet most of us spend our days staring at the waves and forgetting the ocean. We become so caught up in the surface activity, thoughts, stories, emotions, dramas, that we lose sight of the vast depth in which all of it takes place. It's like being hypnotized by a movie and forgetting that it's playing on a screen. The characters, the tension, the joy, the heartbreak. We take it all so seriously that we forget the screen remains untouched by every scene, or like being consumed by the weather, rain, storms, sunshine, and forgetting that all of it happens within a sky that never resists, never breaks, never closes. This forgetting is natural, even necessary. It is part of how consciousness explores itself, part of the adventure of appearing to be separate from what you really are. But the remembering that is always available, in every single moment, all it takes is a gentle shift from focusing on what you are aware of to recognizing the awareness itself, from clinging to the content of experience to noticing the context in which it arises, from the surface waves to the vastness of the ocean. When you do this, even for a moment, you may be astonished by what you find. The awareness that has been here all along is not only peaceful, but also vast, radiant, and quietly loving. It does not turn away from your experience. It does not judge or resist. It simply holds everything with unconditional acceptance, the way a mother cradles her crying child, not needing to fix the tears, only to embrace them with warmth. This loving awareness does not seek to change the storm. It simply allows the storm to pass through. And in that allowing, you realize that nothing ever truly threatens it. No matter how wild the waves, no matter how strong the winds, awareness remains, as it always has been, clear, open, unbroken, like fish searching for water while swimming in the sea. We overlook the obvious. The most natural thing in the world is somehow the easiest to forget. But the more you rest here, the more you discover that this peace is not fragile at all. It is indestructible. Life can bring loss, disappointment, pain, or heartbreak, yet none of it can diminish what you truly are. The surface may tremble, but the ground remains firm. The sky does not fall when clouds gather. This does not mean you stop caring about life's challenges. It does not make you cold or indifferent. You still care, still love, still act, still feel. You still work to ease suffering, to improve situations, to bring kindness where it is needed. But now you do it all from the solid ground of peace, rather than the shifting sand of reactivity. You respond instead of react. You act from clarity instead of compulsion. You are moved by compassion, not by fear. Over time, this becomes less of a practice and more of a way of being. Instead of being pulled into every storm, you naturally remain centered in the awareness that watches the storm. Instead of identifying with every thought, you recognize yourself as the open space in which thoughts appear and disappear. Instead of shrinking into emotions, you expand into the sky that holds them all. You become like the vast sky itself, open, boundless, undisturbed by whatever weather comes and goes. Sunshine does not make the sky brighter. Storms do not make it darker. The sky is the sky, unchanging, untouched. And so it is with you. This is not an achievement, not a prize at the end of a spiritual path. It is not a rare state reserved for sages or monks. It is your natural condition, always here, simply overlooked. The peace that was never disturbed is not something to earn, not something to cultivate, not something you need to become worthy of. It is what you already are. All that's required is to stop overlooking it. And when you truly see this, when you recognize the unshakable stillness that has always been your nature, something profound happens. All the questions that used to trouble you, all the doubts that once seemed so urgent, begin to dissolve. You see that the answers were not hidden in the distance, waiting to be found. They were shining silently in the place you have never left. When questions disappear, there are some questions that cannot be answered with words. not because they are too mysterious, too abstract, or too complex, but because the answer is larger than words could ever hold. Trying to contain it in language is like trying to pour the ocean into a teacup. Words can point, hint, gesture toward it, but they can never give you the thing itself. It's like trying to describe the color blue to someone who has never seen color. You can compare it to the sky, to water, to emotions, but no explanation will give them the direct experience of seeing blue. At some point, description fails. Only seeing reveals. Zen masters knew this. Centuries ago, they discovered that the most essential insights about life could not be handed down through ordinary explanations, philosophies, or doctrines. You cannot think your way into discovering what you are. You cannot analyze your way into peace. You cannot argue your way into enlightenment. The mind can only circle, and circle, and circle again. At some point, circle has to break open. That's why Zen teachers used a different kind of question, the koan. A koan is not designed to give you an answer you can write down or memorize. It's not a riddle to be solved by cleverness. It is a tool to exhaust the mind, to reveal its limits, and to point beyond logic toward direct recognition. Koans are like puzzles that dissolve the moment you stop trying to solve them. They are questions that collapse the very process of questioning. Perhaps the most famous one is this. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Immediately, the mind jumps in. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's the wish of air. Maybe it's a trick question. But each attempt is still caught in thought, still trying to grasp with concepts what cannot be grasped. The real resolution doesn't come from any clever answer. It comes from noticing what is listening to the question. What is it that hears both the presence of sound and the absence of sound? What is the space in which clapping and silence both appear? When you stop struggling to solve it and simply rest in the act of listening, something shifts. You realize that you are not apart from the answer. You are the answer. Here's another classic koan. Show me your original face before your parents were born. At first, the mind tries to turn it into a historical puzzle. Maybe it means genetics, or ancestry, or some poetic metaphor, but that is still thinking. The koan is not asking for information. It is asking for recognition. What were you before your name, before your story, before even the idea of you? What are you right now beneath every role and every mask? Koans work by creating a kind of fruitful confusion. They jam the gears of the rational mind until it sputters and stalls. And in that moment of surrender, when the mind gives up its chase, something else shines through. Awareness reveals itself, quietly watching the whole process unfold. It's like being lost in a maze, turning corner after corner, searching for the exit. At some point you suddenly realize you don't need to solve the maze. You can simply step outside it. The problem is not solved, it is dissolved. And in that dissolution, the great silence appears. The questions fade, and what remains is the living presence that was there before the questions ever began. It's dissolved. The question doesn't get answered in the way the mind expects. It disappears. It melts into understanding. What was once a problem to be solved becomes an opening to recognition. You don't figure out what you are. You simply recognize what you have always been. This is why paradox has always been such a powerful tool in spiritual teaching. Logic insists that things must be either this or that, black or white, true or false. But reality is not so easily contained. Reality is both and neither. You are both someone and no one, both here and everywhere, both on the path and already at the destination, both the seeker and the sought. Paradox cracks the rigid structures of the mind and opens doors that logic keeps bolted shut. When you truly meet a koan, something unusual begins to happen. Your familiar ways of understanding no longer function. Knowledge fails you. Analysis collapses. Cleverness runs out of tricks. You are brought to the edge of what you can grasp, and the only option left is to let go. You become like a child again, open, curious, willing, not to know. And in that innocent not knowing, another kind of knowing emerges. A knowing that does not come through concepts, but through recognition. It is like suddenly realizing that what you thought was a stranger across the room is actually your oldest friend. Nothing new is added. There is no new information, yet everything changes. You don't gain something. You realize you never lost it. The deepest answers are not delivered in words. They arrive as silence. They leave you speechless, not because you are confused, but because you are complete. The mind falls quiet, not from lack, but from fullness. Words become unnecessary, like trying to describe water to the ocean. The ocean doesn't need a description. It is the water. This speechlessness is not a failure. It is the fulfillment of the inquiry. When understanding is complete, there is nothing left to say about it. Think of how love works. When you are deeply, utterly in love, words feel clumsy, small, inadequate, compared to the immensity of the feeling. The experience is overflowing, so full that language feels thin beside it. Silence in that case is more eloquent than speech. This is why ancient Zen students would sometimes spend years, even decades, working with a single koan. Not because the koan was complex like a riddle in a book, but because it required a radical shift in how they approached reality itself. They had to learn to meet life directly, without leaning on the filter of concepts. They had to taste the difference between knowing about something and being it. And this shift happens in many ways. Sometimes it comes like a lightning strike, sudden, electric, illuminating everything at once. Sometimes it comes like the slow unfolding of dawn, a gradual softening, a light that gently spreads until the whole landscape is revealed. But whether sudden or slow, it is not really a transformation. It is simply a recognition of what has always been present, waiting patiently to be noticed. You do not need formal koans to encounter this. Life itself is endlessly generous with its invitations. Every moment is a koan. Every breath is a koan. Every experience is a question whispering, "What are you?" In joy and in sorrow, in chaos and in calm, life keeps asking, "Who am I really? What is this moment? Where does awareness begin and end? What is it that remains the same through all the changes?" These are not questions that can be answered once and for all with words. They are questions that dissolve into recognition. They are living inquiries. When you stop trying to solve them as puzzles and instead begin to live them as openings, something beautiful occurs. The questions begin to answer themselves, not through concepts, not through clever explanations, but through direct knowing. And in that knowing, you discover something astonishing. You have always been the very answer you were seeking. This is why Zen teachers sometimes respond to questions with silence, with laughter, with a shout, or even with a sudden gesture, a raised finger, a sweep of the hand, a strike of the staff. They are not trying to be cryptic, nor are they playing games. They are pointing to what words can never hold. They are showing you in the most direct way possible that the real answer is always closer than language can reach. The sound of one hand clapping is not hidden in some clever riddle. It is the sound of this very moment, exactly as it is. Your original face before your parents were born is not a mystery to be solved in the past. It is the awareness that is reading these words right now. The answer to every so-called spiritual question is nothing outside you. It is the very one who is asking, not the story of a person, not the name, not the history, but the pure awareness in which that story appears. and disappeared. And when this recognition dawns, the questions don't get answered in the old way. They become irrelevant. They dissolve like mist under the morning sun. It's like asking what color Wednesday is, or how much space weighs. The problem vanishes because it was never the right question in the first place. You weren't supposed to figure out what you are. You were meant to notice that you are. This doesn't mean rejecting the mind or becoming anti-intellectual. Thinking is not the enemy. Thinking is a beautiful wave of awareness. Just as the ocean naturally expresses itself in tides, ripples and storms. But just as you don't confuse the waves with the whole ocean, you no longer confuse thoughts with what you are. You see them for what they are, temporary expressions, moving patterns, arising and dissolving within something deeper, vast, and unshakable. The deepest understanding is always wordless. It is like a mother's love for her child, infinite, tender, beyond explanation. It is like the beauty of a sunset, undeniable, luminous, yet impossible to capture in description. It is like the stillness of deep sleep, perfectly known, perfectly lived, but beyond articulation. These truths can only be experienced directly. They must be lived, not learned. And the most astonishing discovery of all is this: the wordless understanding you long for was never hidden. You do not gain enlightenment as if it were a prize waiting for you at the end of effort. You recognize that enlightenment is what you have always been. You do not find peace like something lost. You awaken to the peace that has never left you. You do not become awareness. You recognize you are awareness itself. When questions dissolve into this recognition, something remarkable happens. The very experiences that once confused you, that once seemed like obstacles, now become your teachers. The sadness you tried to escape reveals its own impermanence and the vast space that holds it. The anger you once feared becomes a mirror, showing you the energy of life itself. The ordinary sound of rain teaches you that every sound arises in the same silence that holds the stars. Even your own breathing, so simple, so constant, reveals the mystery of life animating your body without effort. This is the secret. When you stop trying so hard to learn, life itself begins teaching you directly, not through books, not through lectures, not even through teachers, but through the immediacy of what is happening right now. Every moment becomes a classroom. Existence itself is the teacher, and awareness is both the student and the lesson. Most of us were trained to believe that learning requires a separation, a teacher who knows, a student who doesn't, and knowledge that must be transferred. But what if wisdom doesn't work that way? What if the deepest understanding arises not from accumulation, but from attention, not from adding more, but from seeing clearly what is already here? When you are fully present with any experience, it begins to reveal its nature. When you meet life without resistance, without trying to make it fit your concepts, reality begins to teach you directly. Sadness reveals spaciousness. Joy reveals intimacy. Silence reveals wholeness. Every single moment is an unopened letter from reality, waiting for you to read it with the eyes of awareness. To live this way requires a fundamental shift, a shift in how you see yourself and how you meet the world. Instead of treating life as something you must conquer, fix, or explain, you begin to approach it with humility, with curiosity, with wonder. You allow reality to show itself just as it is, and when you do, you discover that the greatest wisdom was never hidden in distant scriptures or future achievements. It was here, in this breath, this sound, this moment, all along. Instead of being someone who needs to learn about life, you become someone who allows life to reveal its wisdom through you. Instead of trying to figure everything out, you become available to be taught by everything. Instead of clinging to answers, you become an open question, a living invitation that life itself continually responds to. When this shift occurs, something remarkable begins to unfold. Every experience carries meaning, not because you force it, but because you give it the space to show its inherent meaning. A traffic jam, once only frustration, becomes a teacher of patience and surrender. A difficult conversation, once only stress, becomes a teacher of listening, of compassion, of humility. Even physical pain, once only resistance, becomes a teacher of showing you the unshakable awareness that feels the pain, yet remains untouched by it. This is the essence of an old Zen saying: every moment is a Dharma talk given by existence itself. Dharma means truth, teaching, reality, which means every moment is truth teaching truth. Every sensation, every thought, every breath, every silence is reality showing you reality. But for this teaching to be received, presence is required. When you are lost in the stories you spin about life, you miss the life that is actually unfolding. When you are caught in judging, this is good, this is bad, this should stay, this should go, you miss the deeper instruction hidden in the moment. When you are busy resisting or rearranging your experience, you miss the gift it already carries. The curriculum of life is perfectly personalized. Whatever you most need to understand will keep circling back until you recognize it. If surrender is what you need, life will keep offering situations that bring you to your knees. If love is what you need, opportunities to give and receive love will quietly or dramatically arrive. If self-recognition is what you need, everything, joy, sorrow, silence, noise, will conspire to show you your true nature. This doesn't mean that life is a teacher in the sense of someone designing lessons for you. It's not deliberate in that way. It's more natural, more organic, like water flowing downhill, like fire giving heat, like the sky holding clouds. Life reveals wisdom simply by being what it is. The teaching is woven into the fabric of experience itself. You don't have to go searching for it in sacred places. You just have to stop turning away from it where you already are. Sometimes the teaching is gentle, almost tender. A sunset dissolves your mind's noise and reveals a silent peace that was always here. A child's laughter cuts through worry and reminds you of joy's simple, timeless nature. A moment of stillness between tasks, between breaths, opens into the spacious awareness that is your very essence. And sometimes the teaching is fierce. Loss arrives, and it teaches impermanence, showing you that forms vanish, but what you truly are remains untouched. Illness comes, and it teaches you the difference between the body temporary, changing, and the awareness that watches the body come and go. Conflict arises, and it reveals the places where you are still clinging to the illusion of being a separate self who can be threatened. Whether gentle or fierce, sweet or painful, the teaching is always the same. It is always pointing to one recognition: you are the awareness in which everything appears. The forms change, the moods rise and fall, but the ground of your being remains unchanged. And here is the beauty: this learning never ends. Life is an endless stream of opportunities to wake up to what you are. Every conversation is an invitation to see through separation. Every challenge is a doorway back to the peace that cannot be disturbed. Every breath is a reminder of the mystery that animates you. And no one is excluded from this. You don't need to be spiritual. You don't need to be wise. You don't need to be educated, disciplined, or gifted. The only requirement is openness, the willingness to be present. That's it. Life does the rest. Life has always been doing the rest. It is the master teacher that never sleeps, never charges tuition, and never withholds the lesson. This shift changes everything about how you relate to difficulty. What once looked like obstacles begin to reveal themselves as hidden gateways. What once felt like punishment begins to show itself as initiation. The very experiences that test you most deeply often turn out to be the teachers that carry the greatest gifts. They're like intensive courses in discovering the part of you that cannot be shaken by any storm. But this doesn't mean going out of your way to chase suffering or to glorify pain. It doesn't mean becoming attached to hardship as if it were more spiritual than joy. It simply means meeting whatever arises, pleasant or unpleasant, with a willingness to listen. Instead of asking, "How can I escape this?" you begin asking, "What is this here to reveal?" And very often, the answer is simple and profound. It shows you that you are larger than whatever is happening to you. The pain comes and goes, but you remain. The fear rises and falls, but you remain. The storm rages and then clears, but the sky has never been harmed. When this recognition sinks in, a shift takes place. You no longer see yourself as a victim being tossed around by random circumstances. You begin to see yourself as a student of reality itself. You stop demanding that life conform to your preferences, and instead you start appreciating how exquisitely life shapes itself to show you exactly what you most need to see. This doesn't make you passive or resigned. You still set boundaries, speak truth, and take wise action. But now your actions arise from clarity instead of reactivity, from love instead of fear, from a sense of wholeness instead of lack. Life stops feeling like something you must fight against or fix, and starts to feel like something you can partner with. The teachings are always perfectly calibrated to your capacity in the present moment. You are never given too much, but you are often given exactly enough to stretch you to your edge. At times it feels overwhelming, yet looking back, you see how perfectly it was tailored for your growth. And as you deepen in awareness, life doesn't always need to shout through chaos or drama to get your attention. The lessons grow subtler, quieter, a gentle shift in tone, a fleeting emotion, even a single breath becomes a doorway to recognition. Eventually, you realize the most astonishing thing. The teacher and the student were never two. Life teaching you is you teaching yourself. The universe revealing its nature is your own true nature, shining through. Awareness appearing to learn about awareness is simply awareness waking up to itself. The whole adventure, with all its detours and apparent obstacles, is consciousness exploring its own infinite depth through the dream of individuality. This recognition brings with it a profound trust. You begin to sense that everything, no matter how it first appears, is moving in the direction of awakening, not because someone is pushing it there, not because you're forcing it, but because awakening is simply the nature of life. Just as rivers naturally find their way to the ocean, life naturally finds its way back to itself. And once you see this, a new ease enters the journey. You realize you cannot fall off the path because there was never a path to fall from. You realize you cannot miss the destination because the destination is already here. The whole search was never about finding something new. It was always about remembering what has been present all along. The journey home.
There is something beautifully absurd, even playful, about the spiritual search when you finally see it clearly. People spend years, sometimes decades, even lifetimes, trying to reach a place they've never once left. They chase methods, teachers, and philosophies to discover what has been closer than their own breath. It's like searching the whole house for your glasses while they've been sitting on your head the entire time.
Every spiritual tradition speaks of this journey, the path to enlightenment, the way to God, the road to awakening, the ascent to heaven. These paths are precious and meaningful, each one offering practices, insights, and guidance. And yet here is the great cosmic joke. They all lead to the same place. here, now, this very moment. It is like taking an elaborate journey around the world, climbing mountains and crossing oceans, only to return home and discover that the treasure you were seeking was buried in your own backyard. And yet, the journey is not wasted. The traveling changes you. The wandering polishes your perception. The longing itself ripens into recognition. The destination has always been here, but the walk helped you learn how to see it. This is why so many spiritual paths seem circular. You begin with meditation to find peace. You practice diligently, searching for a state of calm, and eventually you realize the peace you sought was not hidden inside meditation. It was the space that was aware of you meditating all along. You practice surrender, hoping to let go of control, only to discover in the end that what you really are was never in control to begin with. You try to rise above the ego, only to find there was never actually an ego there to transcend, just a bundle of thoughts, a habit of identification, a passing mirage mistaken for substance. The circles of practice are not a flaw in the path. The circles are the path. Round and round you go, tracing loops through meditation, study, service, devotion. Each turn brings you back to the center, and the great surprise is that you are that center. You have always been the still point around which the seeking spins. It's like a cosmic game of hide and seek, where the seeker and the sought are one and the same, like a dog chasing its tail, but on the grandest, most sacred scale imaginable. You chase what you already are. You attempt to reach what you've never left. You try to become what you've always been. And then one day, if grace touches you, you just stop. You stop the chase. You look, not outward, but directly. And there it is. There you are, exactly where you've always been. The old Zen teachers describe this as the gateless gate. It sounds like a riddle, but it's actually the most precise description of spiritual life. You spend enormous energy trying to pass through a gate that was never there, to reach a destination you never departed from. The gate is gateless because there was never any separation between here and there, between me and truth. But the mind adores the idea of a journey. It thrives on the story of progress. The ego loves a road to walk, a ladder to climb, a mountain to conquer. Journeys can be measured. Progress can be compared. The mind can congratulate itself on distance covered and feel superior to those who lag behind. Yet what you are truly seeking cannot be measured, cannot be compared, cannot be reached by steps or effort, because it is what's looking through your eyes right now. What you long to arrive at is what's carrying the longing. What you want to grasp is what's doing the grasping. The seeker and the sought have never been two. They're like a wave searching desperately for the ocean, unaware that it is already nothing but ocean water through and through. When this recognition dawns, it often arrives as a shock. After years, sometimes lifetimes of effort, you suddenly see there was nowhere to go. After countless meditations and rituals, you realize that what you were meditating on was already complete. After devouring library shelves of wisdom books, you recognize that the very awareness reading the books has always been awake. And still, this doesn't make the journey meaningless. Far from it. The seeking was necessary, not to get you somewhere, but to exhaust the illusion that there was somewhere else to get. You had to seek until you finally saw that seeking itself was the barrier. You had to chase becoming until you realized you already were. You had to keep trying to find until you finally gave up and noticed what had never been hidden. This is why awakening so often feels like coming home. Not because you step into a new world, but because you recognize the one you've never left. It's like Dorothy in Oz, clicking her heels only to discover she could have gone home at any time. The way was always open. The power was always yours. Home was always here. And yet, the question lingers. Why does it take so long to notice something so obvious? Because what you are looking for is too close to see. It's like trying to see your own eyes without a mirror. You are the very thing you're searching for, so you can never step back far enough to grasp it as an object. You can't see it. You can only be it, which you already are. The spiritual path, then, is less about acquisition and more about subtraction, less about becoming, more about unbecoming. You try one teaching, then another. You practice one method, then another. Gradually, one by one, illusions fall away. You discover you are not your thoughts. They come and go like clouds. You are not your emotions. They shift like weather. You are not your body. It changes, ages, dissolves. You are not even your experiences. They flash into being and vanish again. So what remains when everything that can be lost is gone? What shines when every layer has been peeled back? That still, unshakable presence, that undeniable awareness, that silent, luminous I am, that has been here from the very beginning. What remains is what was there before you ever began seeking. What remains is what was silently present during every moment of the seeking. What remains is what's here now, clear and unchanged, even when the seeking falls away. It is pure awareness, consciousness itself, the vast space in which all experiences rise and dissolve. And this simple, undeniable presence is what you are. This doesn't mean you stop growing, or loving, or learning, or creating. It means that all of these unfold now from wholeness rather than from lack. Growth is no longer an attempt to fix something broken, but an expression of the fullness that was never missing. Learning is no longer a way to become complete, but a celebration of the completeness you already are. The journey transforms from a restless seeking into a joyful exploring. Instead of striving to get somewhere, you find yourself appreciating where you are. Instead of working toward enlightenment as some future prize, you discover yourself naturally expressing the enlightenment that has always been here. Instead of trying to become spiritual, you recognize that spirit is what you've always been. This shift may arrive like lightning, a sudden flash of recognition. I was already home all along. Or it may unfold like the gradual coloring of dawn, a slow softening, a deepening familiarity with the landscape of your own being. Either way, nothing actually changes location. Only the perspective changes about the location you never left. When this recognition stabilizes, the whole idea of a spiritual path becomes quietly obsolete, not because the path has been completed, but because the very need for a path does. You see that you were like someone digging frantically, trying to reach the ground while already standing firmly on it. The gateless gate was never closed. The path was pathless, because there was never any real distance to travel. The journey led nowhere, and yet nowhere is exactly everywhere you could ever be. And this doesn't make you arrogant or dismissive of those still seeking. Quite the opposite. It opens a deeper compassion, because you remember what it felt like to feel lost, even though you were never lost. You remember the ache of searching for what was already closer than your own breath. You understand the strange, beautiful, necessary paradox of the journey, that one must wander in order to finally see there was no need to wander. But here's another discovery. The journey doesn't really end. It only transforms. Instead of seeking to arrive somewhere else, you begin to explore the infinite depths of here. Instead of trying to become someone different, you discover the endless mystery of what you already are. Awakening is not a conclusion. It is the opening of an inexhaustible unfolding. The most beautiful part of recognizing you're already home is that you can finally rest. You can set down the exhausting burden of becoming. You can stop grasping at the next insight, the next state, the next step. You can simply rest in the perfection of this moment, this breath, this awareness, this being. And in this resting, a joy emerges that isn't dependent on anything, a freedom that doesn't come and go. And here's the final surprise of it all. When awakening happens, you realize it never actually happened. Not because it isn't real, but because what you thought needed to awaken was never asleep. Awareness has always been awake, always shining, always here, always itself. What ends is only the dream of searching. What falls away is only the illusion of distance. And what remains is the simplicity of being vast, silent, whole, free. It's like realizing the thing you've been desperately searching for has been sitting on your nose the whole time, like looking for your glasses while already wearing them, or searching for your keys while they're in your hand. The great cosmic joke is that enlightenment isn't about becoming something else at all. It's not about turning into a different, shinier version of yourself. It's not some dramatic crossing of a mystical threshold, where the ordinary dissolves into the extraordinary. We imagine awakening as leaving behind ignorance for wisdom, suffering for bliss, separation for unity. But what if it's far simpler and far more intimate than all those grand ideas? What if enlightenment is nothing other than noticing what has never once been absent? What if awakening is simply recognizing that what you've been seeking has always been awake, always here, always shining as the background of every moment? Think of it like this. When you wake up from a nighttime dream, the dream you seems so real while you're in it. That character has problems to solve, desires to chase, a story unfolding with highs and lows. But the moment you open your eyes, you realize that character never truly existed. It was consciousness imagining itself into a role. The real you weren't the dream figure, it was the awareness that dreamed the entire scene. Spiritual awakening works the same way. The person you believe yourself to be, with all the struggles, the searching, the triumphs, the heartbreaks, is the dream character. While you're identified with that role, it feels utterly solid. But the moment recognition dawns, you see that the person was only ever consciousness playing dress-up, pretending to be limited, forgetting its own vastness. And here's the key. Consciousness itself never slept. It was never broken, never lost, never in need of repair. It was simply enjoying the play of pretending, like an actor so immersed in a role that for a time they forget they're on stage. And then, in a flash, or in a slow softening, the remembering happens. The actor remembers the stage. Consciousness remembers itself. Enlightenment feels less like learning something new and more like remembering something so obvious you laugh out loud. It's like catching a glimpse of a friend's familiar face in a busy crowd. They were always there, but now the recognition lands. And the beauty is, this recognition doesn't require incense, meditation halls, or mountaintop caves. It doesn't require thunderbolts of ecstasy. It can happen anywhere, anytime, right in the middle of your ordinary life. You might be rinsing soap from a dish, and suddenly the stillness of the awareness noticing your hands feels infinite. You might be sitting at a red light, and the simple act of breathing reveals a vast silence that holds everything. You might be listening to someone complain, and beneath their words you notice the listening itself is effortlessly peaceful, untouched. You might feel sadness in your chest, but realize the awareness noticing that sadness is vast, open, entirely free of sorrow. These are not special states. They are doorways hiding in plain sight. And the more you recognize them, the more you see The door was never locked. Every moment is already awake. Every sound, every sensation, every fleeting thought is shimmering within the same pristine awareness. Nothing has to be added. Nothing has to be removed. Awakening is not about improving the experience. It is about recognizing the perfection of the experiencing itself. Not a better moment, but its moment, seen clearly. Not a more peaceful mind, but the awareness that holds even restlessness in peace. Not some idealized version of yourself, but the simple fact of being that has never left. This means you don't have to wait. You don't have to first become calmer, wiser, kinder, or more spiritual. Right here, with whatever thoughts are arising, whatever feelings are moving through, whatever sensations are flickering across the body, the awakened awareness is already fully present. Not tomorrow, not later, not when you're ready. Now. It's what's reading these words right now, what's hearing these thoughts rise and fall like waves, what's experiencing the entire play of this life. And yet the mind struggles with this, almost refuses to believe it. It wants awakening to be bigger, louder, more dramatic, something that looks like fireworks display over the night sky of existence. The mind wants a grand finale, a moment so special that it leaves no doubt. And yes, sometimes awakening does seem to come wrapped in lightning strikes of insight, or profound heart-bursting clarity, or tears of bliss that feel like rivers washing everything clean. But those are just weather patterns. They are experiences arising within the vast sky of awareness. They may be dazzling, but they are not the sky itself. The most intimate awakening is usually the quietest. It is the simplest of recognitions. You have never not been awake. The awareness that is here now is the same awareness that was present when you were a child, when you laughed, when you wept, when you felt lost, when you felt found. It never dimmed. Even in your darkest confusion, awareness itself was clear. Even in your deepest sense of separation, the wholeness of what you are was never broken. This recognition doesn't transform you into some otherworldly being. It doesn't add anything new. Instead, it reveals that the someone you thought you were, the limited, separate person, was never truly there in the first place. The personality goes on. The body lives its cycles. The story of your life continues to unfold. But you are no longer confined to those appearances. You are the vastness in which they appear, the open space in which the play of living takes place. It's like watching a movie and suddenly remembering, you are not the character struggling on the screen, you are the screen itself. The movie keeps rolling, the dramas, the joys, the heartbreaks. But you are no longer trapped in the fate of the character. You see clearly. The story is only light and shadow dancing on an unchanging backdrop. The character lives and dies 1,000 times, but the screen is never harmed. This shift changes everything, while paradoxically changing nothing at all. Outwardly, your life might look identical. You still cook dinner, go to work, have conversations, laugh with friends, grieve losses, pay bills. But inwardly, the center of gravity has shifted. You no longer feel like a fragile, someone being pushed around by circumstance. Instead, everything arises in the vast field that you are. Problems don't vanish, but they no longer define you. Emotions still surge, but they flow through infinite space instead of flooding a small container. Life continues, but it unfolds as you, not to you. The search for awakening doesn't end because you found it. It ends because you recognize you were what you were looking for. All along, the seeker dissolves, not by achieving its prize, but by realizing there was never a separate seeker in the first place. The journey ends, not at some distant temple, but at the doorstep you never left. This is why it's said, you don't become awake, you see that you were never asleep. Consciousness itself has been awake through every moment of your existence. It was present at your first breath, present through every joy and sorrow, present through all your searching, present even now as you read. It was never absent, never diminished, never broken. The person who seemed to wake up was only ever a mask, a costume worn by timeless awareness. The seeker who struggled was never other than the sought. The dreamer and the dream were never two. It was always consciousness playing all the parts in its own mysterious theater. And when this is seen, something beautiful opens, seeking ends, and living begins. You stop chasing awakening as an object, and instead you live as awakening itself. You stop striving for enlightenment as a goal, and instead you express the enlightenment that shines through every breath, every step, every smile. You stop reaching for freedom as if it's elsewhere, and instead you celebrate the freedom that was never bound. And then another recognition blooms. If you were never truly asleep, neither was anyone else. The same awareness looking through your eyes is looking through every pair of eyes. The same stillness holding your life holds all of life. This changes how you see everything. Every face becomes your own face, every heart your own heart. This is the end of the spiritual search and the beginning of spiritual living. When you know you've never left home, you can finally wander freely. When you know you've always been whole, you can finally play at being human without fear. So here we are, hours later, words later, thoughts later, and where have we gone? Nowhere at all. And yet somehow everything has shifted. The journey that never began has somehow brought you home. You began this journey with questions. Questions that felt so heavy, so urgent, that they pressed against your chest like stones you couldn't set down. Why are we born? Why do we suffer? Why are we here? At the time, these seemed like the most important questions in the world, and they were, but not because they needed tidy answers. Their importance was in the way they turned you inward, the way they drew you home to yourself. Each question was like a finger pointing towards something you could not yet name, and step by step, word by word, moment by moment, they carried you here. And what have we discovered together? Something disarmingly simple, so ordinary it feels almost unbelievable. You came seeking answers, only to find that the very seeker was already the answer. You came searching for peace, only to realize that peace was never lost. It was the silent foundation in which the search itself was happening. You came yearning for your true nature, and in the end, you recognized it as the awareness that was doing the yearning. The questions that brought you here did not get resolved in the way the mind had hoped. They dissolved. Like salt vanishing into water, they became inseparable from the vast ocean of the understanding they were pointing toward. Why are we born? You are not a birth. You are the unborn awareness in which birth and death flicker like sparks. Why do we suffer? You are not the story of suffering. You are the vastness in which suffering rises and fades like waves dissolving back into the sea. Why are we here? You are not a place. You are the very here in which every place appears. This is not the end of questioning. It is the transformation of questioning. The restless, urgent grasping of the mind relaxes into the open curiosity of the heart. Questions can still appear, but they are no longer heavy burdens demanding resolution. They become like children at play, light, curious, innocent, expressions of wonder rather than cries of desperation. They move in freedom because you have recognized what every question was secretly seeking, the one asking. And what you have found is not new. It has never been absent. It is the same presence that has always been quietly here, listening to these words, watching your life unfold. witnessing joys and heartbreaks, beginnings and endings. It is the open space in which every sound, sensation, and thought has appeared and disappeared. It is the silent background that has remained unmoved, unbroken through every change. You have not acquired something. You have not become something. You have simply recognized what cannot be lost. And that recognition changes everything, while outwardly changing nothing. Your life continues. You wake, you walk, you work, you laugh, you grieve. But now life is no longer something that happens to you. It happens as you. Thoughts still come, but you are no longer caught in their nets. You see them for what they are, flickers in the vastness, passing weather in your boundless sky. Emotions still surge, but they no longer define you. They rise and fall, but the space in which they rise and fall remains untouched, infinite, still. The great search that brought you here can finally rest. Not because you've reached the finish line of some journey, but because you've seen that there was never anywhere to go. The path was always a circle, spiraling you back to the simplicity of this moment, this presence, this home that has never left you. And here is the most beautiful part. This homecoming is not private. It includes everyone. The same awareness shining through your eyes is shining through all eyes. The same stillness that carries you carries the world. When you meet another person now, when you look into their eyes, you may recognize something achingly familiar, your own face, your own being, looking back at you. When you hear laughter, it may sound like your own joy playing in a different voice. When you see someone's tears, you may feel your own heart breaking open in them. The separation between me and you reveals itself for what it always was, a passing appearance in the indivisible whole. And what is revealed is not that you are different, not that you are special, but that at the deepest level, you are the same. Not just with one or two, not just with those you love, but with everyone, everywhere, always. It doesn't lift you out of the human experience as if to escape it. Instead, it illuminates the divine nature woven into the fabric of ordinary human living. The sacred doesn't sit above the mundane. It shines through. Every laugh, every tear, every silence between words is revealed as a doorway into what has always been whole. This recognition doesn't erase your challenges. Bills still come due, relationships still ebb and flow, the body still aches and ages. Life continues to be life. But your relationship to all of it shifts so deeply that even the weight of suffering feels different. Problems no longer define you. They appear and dissolve in the boundless presence that you are. Joys no longer bind you with grasping. They too arise and pass, leaving the vast openness unchanged. From this place, life becomes simpler, not because everything is easy, but because you no longer need to add the burden of becoming someone else. Instead of striving to fix or improve yourself, you can finally rest in being who you already are. Instead of chasing experiences to fill an imagined emptiness, you allow experiences to move freely through the fullness you already embody. Instead of anxiously searching for a grand purpose, you begin to trust the quiet purpose that has always been expressing itself as your very existence. The peace you longed for is not fragile. It doesn't need defending. It doesn't depend on your thoughts being calm, your emotions being stable, or your circumstances aligning perfectly. It is the ever-present background, the unmoving ground beneath every storm, the silent sky in which every cloud drifts, always present, always available, always here. You can sink into it like the ocean resting in itself, without effort, without condition. And yet, this rest is not the rest of withdrawal. It is not a turning away from life. It is the most alive, dynamic rest imaginable. The rest of a tree, silently stretching toward the sun, the rest of a river flowing effortlessly to the sea, the rest of a heart that beats without needing to be reminded. It is natural, spontaneous, creative, perfectly attuned to the needs of each moment. This is your invitation now, not to strive, not to chase, not to add another layer of effort to your being, but to simply rest in what you are, to allow this recognition to seep into the corners of your life, to soften the old patterns of seeking and striving, to let the fragrance of this understanding touch everything you do. From this resting, life may begin to blossom in unexpected ways. Playfulness arises without being forced. Laughter comes more easily. Love flows without calculation. You don't need to manufacture these qualities. They are the natural radiance of what you are when you are no longer trying to be anything else. Just as a flower naturally turns toward the sun, you find yourself effortlessly drawn toward truth, beauty, kindness, and simplicity. The so-called journey that brought you here was never truly a journey. It was consciousness playing its own game, a divine game of forgetting and remembering, of hiding and seeking, of losing and returning. And now, in this moment, the remembering is clear. You see what has always been so. You are home. But this is not an ending. It is the opening of a new chapter, a chapter where you no longer live toward awakening, but from it, where you no longer chase peace, but embody it, where you no longer strive to become, but relax into the fullness of. Welcome home. Welcome to the truth that never wavered. Welcome to the love that never left. Welcome to the wholeness that was never broken. You are here. You have always been here. And here is exactly where you belong. The questions have dissolved into presence. The seeking has dissolved into being. The path has dissolved into the recognition that you never left the destination. And in this quiet dissolution, life continues exactly as it is. But now you see it for what it has always been. This is homecoming. This is what you are. This is where you've always been. Rest here. Stay here. Live here.